वेलकम बैक टू एपिसोड ऑफ थॉट बिहाइंड थिंग्स। आज हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं दो बहुत ही खास मेहमान एंड द कन्वर्सेशन दैट वी आर going to be talking about is education. I know इसके ऊपर ज़्यादा क्लिक्स नहीं आते तो हम कोई क्लिक बेटी टाइटल डिसाइड कर लेंगे बाद में, but you know I think it's one of the most like the biggest problem that this country is facing. जो अगर आप climate change कह लें, food security कह लें, वो सारा कुछ कर लें, but education का जो फुकदान है इस मुल्क के अंदर, वो इस मुल्क की अगर कोई चीज़ है जो तबाही का सबब बनेगा, मेरा ज़ाती ख्याल ये है कि वो एजुकेशन है। कॉन्वर्सेशन बार बार करने का मकसद ये है कि मुझे पर्सनली अगेन मेरा ज़ाती ख्याल ये है कि उसके बड़े अच्छे सॉल्यूशंस एग्जिस्ट कर रहे भी हैं, कर सकते भी हैं। we're just not trying to figure it out, and so I'm trying to talk to as many people who have the relevant experience and thought leadership, who can guide the way and potentially create an educated Pakistan of 2050. उसके लिए आज हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं दो बहुत ही ख़ास मेहमान. We have with us today Bilal Hameed, who is the CEO and co-founder of Alt Academy, and previously has co-founded or founded, I believe, Cedar School in Karachi, for those of you who know about it. And I definitely know the other one जो कि आप लोग जानते ही होंगे. He was also co-founder for Lyceum as well. Nixor as well. Nixor Sharks, I believe उनकी होती हैं. तो वो जो है उनको भी उन्होंने किया था. And you know he's been part of the academia for quite a while. Very interesting story. And with him we have his co-founder Asad Hashamali, who co-founded the Alt Academy. है क्या Alt Academy? कर क्या रहे हैं? Are they dumb? Are they smart? Are they revolutionary? Let's figure it out, guys. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
I'm gonna start off with you, Bilal. Just
Sure.
sort of a quick summary of you know where were you born, growing up, what was life like?
You want a 1 minute or a 5 minute?
Maybe like a 7.5 minute.
So I had the pleasure and the misfortune of being in multiple cities. तो उसका फ़ायदा भी होता है, नुकसान भी होता है. I was born in Karachi. My parents were living on the island of Manoda, if you know. Manoda is an island in Karachi.
Island in Karachi?
It is, yes. It's called Manoda. And you can only get to the city mainly by boat. So my mom tells me that she would go to the doctors by boat and then delivery as you hit.
Why do I not know this? What?
Yes.
Is this still alive? Like, is this? Do people live there?
Actually, the current chief minister in the last few months, I think there's been a marine drive upgrade on the island. So they had actually just like Clifton Drive बनाई है. They wanted to create that beach drive there also. तो एक बड़ी सी road है, सफाई हो गई है. I haven't been there lately, but earlier.
How big is this space?
It's not too big. I think it's mainly occupied by the Pakistan Navy, and my father was in the Pakistan Navy, so that's why we were there. So I think उनका training camp है या कुछ और चीज़ें हैं, वो सारी वहाँ होती हैं.
Makes sense.
So that's why not many people know this. Locals वहाँ रहते हैं, obviously, those who are there, but not many people venture out in that area. So that's where I was born, and a couple of years, I think for a few years, 5-6 years, हम कराची में रहते. Then as it was Pakistan Navy and any other armed forces, they move you around. So Islamabad आ गए थे हम. I literally was living in E4. We'd walk down to Faisal Masjid. It was beautiful at that time. There were not enough houses. I think it's still E4. Anyways, but
East 7 होगा.
East 7 हो सकता है.
नहीं. E8.
Okay, E8, E7. So
Navy headquarters, है ना?
Yes.
E8, right.
So we were there, and you know, we lived there for a few years. We went to Beacon House there, came back to Karachi. Then
यार नेवी वालों से मेरी बात नहीं हुई जनरली जिंदगी में. आपने शायद फैमिली से पूछा हो.
बिल्कुल पूछे क्या?
समंदर की नेवी का हेडक्वार्टर इस्लामाबाद में क्या कर रहा है?
Most, I think, generally speaking, most of the stuff is in Karachi. Sirf, I think because the real
is it because of the GHQ?
Yes,
all the services chiefs are here, and so they coordinate easily.
That's what I would venture, because I think if you know any Pakistan Navy में one of the most popular positions is Commander Karachi.
अच्छा.
It's most relevant because आपकी fleet सारी कराची में है.
Right.
So it is Karachi based. I think logistics and some other के लिए इस्लामाबाद में लोग कभी कभार पोस्ट होते हैं.
Satellite office कहीं और है.
Right. Makes sense.
But I didn't venture into this too much because क्यों इस्लामाबाद में, but I think it's basically this.
Makes sense.
GHQ यहीं है, but so 2 साल 3 यहाँ थे. Then we went back to Karachi. Then for a year we went to the US also.
Okay.
Because when Navy procures ships or submarines and all that, they send officers. तो 1 साल वहाँ भी गुजार लिया. तो schooling वहाँ भी की. तो फिर कराची वापस आए. तो
so it's primarily Karachi and Islamabad. Like, yes. Are there इस तरह के और कोई नहीं होते, like Ormada?
अब होना शुरू हो गए हैं. So now
जीवानी और पता नहीं क्या नाम है वो बीच?
आई थिंक और मारा है और एक दो और हैं, अब होना शुरू हो गए हैं, लेकिन नाउ आई एम सो कट ऑफ, सो आई डोंट नो. बट उस ज़माने में when I was growing up, there was only Karachi and Islamabad. You would not have anybody. That's why Navy, I think most people like the Navy because there's not much movement of houses. But ये होता है कि if you're in armed forces, your only core is your nucleus is your family. You don't have friends. You make friends, you move. You make friends, you move. And that's what we did. The friends I have from the earliest life I remember are only after 7th grade. जब मैं कराची में आके फाइनली हमने कहा अब अगले 8 साल नहीं कहीं जाना, तो फिर दैट्स आफ्टर द US 1 साल वापस आया, 1 साल वहाँ लगा के देन कराची में थे. आई थिंक O levels भी यहाँ से किया, A levels भी कराची में किया. आई वाज एट ग्रामर स्कूल फॉर A levels. उसके बाद पढ़ने चले गए बाहर न्यूयॉर्क बिकॉज आई रियली लाइक्ड इट. माय मामू वहाँ थे, उन्होंने कहा यहाँ आ जाओ, तो आई वेंट टू न्यूयॉर्क टू स्टडी. Went to a place called City University of New York for a year. Transferred to Rutgers वो New Jersey में था. Best time of my life.
What major?
So I was studying computer science. That was my undergrad.
Back in what year?
Back in 2002. That's the year of graduation. A levels was 1998.
Right.
And graduation was 2002. In fact, actually, I got a chance to studying multiple things. So वहाँ अमेरिका में फ़ायदा होता है कि आप you can study more than one thing. So मेरा major था computer science, but I also did minor in chemistry and Middle Eastern studies.
Interesting.
So because I had interesting professors, जब आपको मिल जाते हैं तो you start looking at those areas.
Middle Eastern studies, what does that mean?
So in most universities ये major exist नहीं करता, ज़्यादातर either religion में होता है. तो कुछ this was called an interdisciplinary के where there were 3-4 majors put together. So कुछ पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ द मिडल ईस्ट, लैंग्वेज ऑफ द मिडल ईस्ट, रिलीजन ऑफ द मिडल ईस्ट मिला के एक बना दी उन्होंने, एक डिग्री बना दी थी. सो आई डिड 6 कोर्सेज थे उसमें. एथिक्स ऑफ इस्लाम, हिस्ट्री ऑफ इस्लाम, Persian language.
That must be so much fun.
It was absolutely
Islam
fun.
through that lens, academic lens, beyond what we generally taught must have been something.
It was एक कहते हैं अंदर से I was rejuvenated. I bought a lot of books back. I only bought those course books back. I had left everything out. तो और funny enough जो professor ने मुझे पढ़ाया था, he is now back in Pakistan. So he is teaching he taught at LUMS. I think he's now at IBA now.
What's his name?
His name is Nomanul Haq.
And he
teaches again Islam and in that realm.
Are you
of
connected with him?
I've met him a few times, but he keeps moving back and forth. He's always busy. So
if you could ever connect us with him, I would love to have an academic discussion on religion.
He is a fascinating human being, a great history he's had life. So I think it'll be great. I would definitely connect with him. He's very opinionated. I think everybody who's learned that much has a very strong opinion about things. So I love having a chat with him, but I'll try to connect.
Zabardast. So you graduated in 2002?
2002 and I came back right after.
Why?
Family issues. I had to take care of. I was the eldest, and I had to take care of family and earn a living.
Right.
छोटे एक भाई पढ़ा था कनाडा में McGill में, और बाकी 2 छोटे बहन भाई थे A levels में थे, Lyceum Avicenna तक.
So जो छोटे बहन भाई हैं वो भी सारे पाकिस्तान आ गए या
वो तो उसके बाद सबने ग्रेजुएट करके आहिस्ता आहिस्ता बाहर चले गए. तो एक भाई कनाडा में मेरा, एक श्रीलंका में, और एक बहन इंग्लैंड में है.
तो आप अकेले यहाँ पर?
मैं अकेला. And I'm the eldest and my mom lives with us.
Interesting. And why Sri Lanka? I mean, that's the there's a lot of firsts here.
Yeah. I mean,
you're really interestingly weird situation happening. But
so that's why I said the movement and all that does create some uniqueness in the family. But also cohesion कम हो जाती है. I know you have your family living abroad, so this you miss them, but that also creates opportunities to learn more about that place. But there's no like you miss them around. So मेरा भाई तो the youngest who's now in Sri Lanka, he actually went there for to find some work before COVID, and COVID hit and वो वहीं रह गया. मैंने कहा just go there and just keep working. Figure it out, and he likes his bohemian, he likes art, so he stopped painting. He's apparently commissioned to paint paintings for those hotels these days, Radisson Blue kinds.
How cool!
Another guest.
That's
another potential guest.
Yeah, like that is so unique. He's living it up.
Yes, the benefits of being the youngest sometimes. You don't have to worry about taking care of everybody around you.
If we get into his story, you might like sidetrack from Bilal also.
Oh yeah, his is a very fascinating story. So, but तो बाकी सारे बहन भाई चले गए बाहर, and I'm here with my mom. And obviously married now, have a child.
Right. So, you were at computer science.
And I didn't want to leave New York. Let me tell you, I love that place. I think everybody, if get a chance, should ever live in New York. I think it teaches you a lot.
Achha.
I think Karachi probably was the only place at that time that could even come close to me being not missing New York as much, because at that time I was very busy. Islamabad was
because
98,
you're saying कि, आप कराची कि आपके अंदर वो था ना एक DNA था, तो आपको मैं तो sure I landed in New York and the first drive in and you're like yaar, incredible feat by human beings.
Yes.
But the third day in I was just like yaar, get me out of this place, like I'm done.
Yeah, I know, and I know the
was
feeling.
it too wired for you or
No,
overwhelming?
वाइड का तो बिल्कुल भी इशू नहीं था. It was just too happening. You genuinely feel like the feeling of insignificance. I think that's a very similar feeling in Karachi as well.
Yes. I know what you mean.
कि वो and there are people who tend to Karachi के जितने भी लोगों से मैं बात करता हूँ who thrive on that feeling, thrive on that sort of hustle and that कि यार मैंने आप दुनिया में जो भी कर लेना, there is always another sort of stairway जिसको आपने करना है, ladder to climb or whatever. हम इस्लामाबादी बड़े इजी में होते हैं. हमने कुछ छोटा मोटा कर लिया ना, हम बड़े सुकून से बैठे थे.
हम यहाँ थे, हम भी इजी हो जाते हैं. हवा में कुछ है.
There is something about that. I agree with you. I think I'm not saying that's a good thing, but yeah, there is that.
न्यूयॉर्क कंपेरेबल में मुझे फिलाडेल्फिया like that's the place that I personally fell in love with. वहाँ
It is a beautiful place. Philadelphia की एक बात यह है कि you'll probably on the same road see a building that's 200 years old and a building that's just now made.
Yeah.
So that beauty is there. New York का ये है कि yes, if you live in Manhattan only, it gets too much. But the beauty is कि आप कहीं और भी रह के न्यूयॉर्क जा सकते हैं. So having a half an hour access to New York, I think, is much more fun than being inside Manhattan.
Of course. I mean, आपका तो जाहिर है कि मैं तो 4-5 दिन के एक्सपीरियंस से बता रहा हूँ. That's irrelevant. वो तो ये कि
So you go for vacationing there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So probably my question was, you came, ठीक है, आपको circumstantially you had to come back to Pakistan, but from computer science to evolving into academia, especially at a time when really the entire industry, I mean, it's like saying कि यार मैं 70s से मैंने ऑयल के अंदर इंजीनियरिंग की और मैंने उसके बाद बत्तखें उगाना शुरू कर दी. Like there is a boom happening and
Yes.
you let go of that boom with all that experience. What happened?
I think
there?
the boom missed Pakistan at that time. I think maybe a few years later ज़्यादा आया था. When I came back, I did want to work in computer science. I got my first job. I actually, in fact, worked with some great people. A company थी, I really love those people. I'm still connected to them, but there was not much money in Pakistan at that time. 5-6 हज़ार रुपये तनख्वाह थी, वही बिल लगता था, पेट्रोल में भी खर्च हो गए सारे पैसे. तो फिर my friend told me यार, because I needed to earn a living to literally, पाकिस्तान में इतना नहीं होता, बाहर के मुल्कों में होता है, but if you have to start earning a living at 22 to support the whole family, then that becomes your primary purpose. Then you will find a way to do that. So a friend of mine who still I'm very close to, high school का दोस्त था, उसने कहा मैं पढ़ाता हूँ शाम में ट्यूशन्स. He is a businessman now. He was studying in IB at that time. He's like यार, I'll give you my tuition. तुम घर आके पढ़ा लो. I started teaching the kids, and I realized that I've always loved teaching because I used to teach my friends during test weeks. जब होते थे ना स्कूलों में होते थे, तो हमारे ज़माने में तो मोबाइल्स नहीं थे ना, तो we had landlines. तो मुझे पता था कि टेस्ट जब आना है ना, तो एक दोस्त है, उसका फ़ोन आना है शाम के 6 बजे 7 बजे. उसको वो सारे सवाल पूछेगा, मैं समझा दूंगा, वो मेरी रिविजन हो जाएगी. And that's what literally I never studied for tests. That was my studying. So when I started teaching these young kids at home, and it'd be strange, मैं गाड़ी में बैठता था, लोगों के घर जाके पढ़ाता था. The money was very good and it was honest living and I enjoyed it. So मैंने कहा कि देखा कि यार आपने अगर फैमिली का ख्याल रखना है, honest living बना सकते हो और घर जाके पढ़ाने में क्या खर्च है. I left my morning jobs and I started going to a school in the morning. तो पहले 6 महीने तो ट्यूशन पढ़ाई थी. ट्यूशन उसके बाद आई स्टार्ट जॉइनिंग एन A-level O-level स्कूल कि दिन में वहाँ पढ़ाऊँ, शाम में ट्यूशन करूँ, मेक इनफ मनी टू सपोर्ट अ फैमिली इन पाकिस्तान. उस ज़माने में आई थिंक यूड से मिडिल क्लास वुड नीड अबाउट 50-60,000. अपर मिडिल क्लास कह लें आप, सर्वाइव हो जाए, गाड़ी का वो लीज निकला है. So that's how I started. And for a few years, I didn't really bother too much about thinking more than just, yeah, मैं पढ़ा रहा हूँ. I had the benefit of being smart. I had a very high IQ. So I could pick up subjects. I was always good. I was a nerd in school. तो O-levels में 7 A's भी आए थे, A-levels में 3 A's भी आए थे, तो सब चीज़ें आती थी. तो वही पढ़ाना शुरू कर दिया आपने वापस. And what I also realized was, and this is a key insight, kids don't need experts to teach them. They need somebody who just knows a little bit more than them. So in most of the subjects, even including accounts हो गया, physics हो गया, add math हो गया, मैंने यूनिवर्सिटी में बहुत डिफरेंट चीज़ें पढ़ी थी, वो नहीं पढ़ी थी उसके बाद. लेकिन because I remember what I did, so when I came back, I would just know a little bit more than them and I would teach them and they would find it very easy, my explanation. So I lucked out that way. I became very popular with the young kids at that time. और उस ज़माने में कोई यंग बंदा नहीं है. अब तो अगर आप कराची हैं तो 20-22 साल के 25 साल के लड़के ग्रेजुएट होकर लम्स IBS से यूनिवर्सिटी स्कूल में पढ़ा रहे हैं because there's a lot of good money there. In my time, not many people did that because सब मुझे ये बोलते थे कि यार अच्छा आप अभी पढ़ा रहे हो, इसके बाद क्या करोगे? What's more?
That was a transitionary role mostly
for most people.
Yeah.
But compared to now, when people have recognized that it's actually a hot profession as well.
Yeah.
And so while you were teaching, I do believe you've co-founded a bunch of schools.
Yes. So I had the good fortune of teaching with some of the best teachers in Karachi. So different schools se nene bante gaye. To the main founder of Nixor College, Nasir Khani, he used to be my head of department at another school. So jab he was setting up Nixor, he asked me for my help. At that time, the committee to make Nixor College was just 2 people, him and me. Then his brother came on board after a few months. But हम लोग रात को बैठते थे, कैफ़े होता था कराची में, उसका नाम था कोस्टा. तो मेरी बड़ी यादें हैं उससे वाबस्ता, बिकॉज हम लोगों ने 2008 पूरा हर रात वहाँ बैठ के काम करते थे. वीड गेट डन फ्रॉम स्कूल्स एंड ट्यूशन एंड 9 PM to 2 AM हम लोग बैठ के बनाते रहते थे. हिज फोकस वॉज द लैंड एंड द बिल्डिंग एंड द टीचर्स, एंड माइन वॉज हाउ टू इनोवेट to get kids in the school, because most of the kids were going to places like Lyceum. Just Asad also went. That was the biggest name school, KGS and Lyceum. So how do we get kids here? He was popular. Nasir Khani had connections with good teachers also. So वो लाता था. And I'd work on the admissions and curriculum and all that. Website उस ज़माने में वो भी चल रही थी, नहीं हर चीज़ आई थी. So we innovated a few things. One of them was early admissions के रिजल्ट से पहले आपका एडमिशन हो जाता था. Because हमारे ज़माने में जब तक O level का रिजल्ट नहीं आता था, A levels में नहीं होता था. So we did that. That was fun for 2 years. I loved that time because they let me, when something is new, they let you innovate. Innovation उस time पे लगता है just be different. कहते हैं ना कराची में तो बड़ी चीज़ होती है. I don't know if इस्लामाबाद की thing है. Everybody wants कि यार कुछ different करते हैं बस, not for the sake of anything but different हो जाए. तो I got to innovate a lot, and I had loved that time for 2 years. Then I became stale because once things settled down in a school, we've got 1,000 kids. We're a good name school. We don't want to rock the boat too much. Innovation ko down karo. Let's just keep running this. I got bored, so I just went back to only teaching because I was doing both, some management and teaching. Uske baad, after a few years, some other friends of mine who knew I'd done that, who were also at Nixor as teachers, they kept pushing, let's make our own school. And at that time, when you're 28, 29, I was getting married at that time. No, sorry, I was already married at that time. I was having a baby at that time. And at that time, I realized that, अपने नाम पर कुछ होना चाहिए. So at Nixor में they offered to give me some partnership, but I gave it up. But then I कहा यार अब time आ गया, तो let's just make a school just because, why can't we do it? So initially Cedar College was the school that we set up. There were about 4 or 5 of us, then more came along. But I think Karachi में this was the first school set up only by teachers. उसके बाद कराची में अब 5-6 schools ऐसे आ गए who follow the exact same model. Teachers आते हैं, they collect some capital and they set up a school. So we did that with Cedar, and it was a big success the first year. It was a lot of fun. So that was a good experience in life also. I ran that school. I was a dean, principal for that school for 3 years also. I think, 2 years. Cedar College. फिर Cedar School में भी I was a school for O levels versus A levels. So वहाँ करते गए, spent a few years on and off. And then now I feel that once you start having a stable business, people don't want to innovate. And I feel that without innovation, everything is going to die out. Especially because you cannot, you can either not like it. I'm not saying people should like innovation, but they cannot ignore it. It's happening at exponential speed. And bhale aapki technology ho, because it's simple, like a chip. Now, I don't know if you know this, but your phone ki chip is so much more powerful than even computers that send people to. I mean, they say it, but it is actually true. You can do so much on a device. So if that's going to be happening, and we talked about AI earlier, and when we were having an off-camera conversation, but so ye cheezein hongi, so the education industry has to be ready for that. And innovation only comes when small band of people who have nothing to lose will come together, have some insight. The problem is also when we talk about the startup world, and maybe we'll go into that, is that हमारे यहाँ बहुत टेक लोग आ जाते हैं कि एक आइडिया आया है, I think people will like it, let's do this. What they don't realize is that for something to really scale, it should be an idea not many people believe in. Because if they believed in right away, everybody would be doing it. Copy to Command C, Control C, V to whatever. So I feel that there has to be some people who are looking into the future in education right now and seeing this is not how this is working. And they've already changed it. You find them, but you don't find them in schools. You find them online. You find them in the garb of Tiago Forte ho gaya ya Ali Abdal ho gaya. They've really revolutionized their domains of how to educate people. And yahan hamare yahan nahi ho raha. I mean, I know Khan Academy came out 10 years ago or some, at least, if not longer. But we still are stuck to not even acknowledging it exists. And it's going to push them. So we need to really innovate, and I decided I have to get out of the system. First, I thought I could be in the system and innovate within the system, but the resistance is too much from within the system. अगर आपका अपना स्कूल भी हो तब भी बहुत ज़्यादा है, बिकॉज आपका अकेला स्कूल नहीं होता. आई couldn't afford to make a school on my own, so we had other partners who were also teachers, and everybody's, I mean, they're all well intentioned, I guess, but it's their job and they want to keep that running, and I want to innovate because I believe that we all are given some gifts, and कभी कभार ना I get very religious about it, but I feel like it's our duty to execute on those gifts, and if we don't, then कहीं ना कहीं somebody Allah or is not happy with it, or गुनाह मिल रहा है हमें. It's some weird philosophical belief है. So I need to do this. I says like an inner desire to at least be able to speak of what you really believe in and do what you really want to do, and वो system के बाहर ही है, which is why we've actually sat down and made Alt Academy.
Makes sense.
It's the first step in trying to dislodge the systems at play.
And so I'd love to know more about it. I'm just going to sort of switch it up to Asad here.
Sorry, Bilal. My turn
No, I need
now.
a break. I'll have some water now. Thanks.
But tell me a little bit about your journey and really what led you to Alt Academy.
So, I'll give you the full picture because I'll also give you the whole context as well. So I was born in Hong Kong, and just like Bilal, I've also had the fortune or misfortune of traveling a lot, getting exposed to multiple cultures, different types of people. So I was born in Hong Kong, belonged to a trader family. Dad was sent from Jodia Bazaar to Hong Kong to set up the family business over there. Then used to visit Pakistan since I was 2 months old, maybe once or twice a year, every year. In 2001, my family and I moved to Dallas. July 2001, in September, we saw the Twin Towers crash. If you've seen Fahrenheit 9/11, there's a clip of George Bush in a class, and then they show in other schools how the TV screens went on. I was one of the kids in those settings who saw that happen. 15 years later, my brother and I talk about how that moment could have left us some PTSD as well. But moved to Pakistan in 2005. Saw for the first time is that there's more than just religious diversities. There's also ethnic diversities as well. Went to a pretty decent school, very happy with the education that my parents gave us as well. Did my O-levels from Bayview High, did my A-levels from Lyceum. At that time, there was no Cedar College. Nixor was new. Nixor was like that rebel, that young gun that people would go to because they wanted something different. They wanted something edgy. I was from a very conservative mindset. I thought that I'd do exactly what my older brother would do, so I followed his footsteps, same subject selection and everything. In 2014, I also I couldn't go abroad. So every A-level kid, or many kids also, not just an A-level, they want to go abroad to study. And even having a passport and nationality, I couldn't go, unfortunately. So I did my undergrad in econ and finance from the University of London. Made the decision of working side by side. It was just something that I wanted to do. I was also told that pehle padhai kar lo, phir kaam karna. But I was like, nahi, if I'm staying, I want to be able to take care of myself and make decisions for myself. So at that age, I told my parents that now you are no longer responsible for me. My only request is to help me figure out how we can pay for my uni, and that's that. But started working very early on. In 2014, I started working at Lyceum, back to my A-level school. But very quickly, within 6 months, I left because wasn't in tune with the culture. January, these guys at Cedar were launching. They were opening up. They had their open house. I volunteered there. Now, Bilal, if people who see Bilal, and I'm sure you'll see this in the comments, like, this guy taught me chemistry, this guy taught me that. He didn't teach me anything. I wasn't in his class. He taught me a lot of stuff outside of class, but I was never his student in school.
I think that's a plus point for us.
Yeah. Thank God.
I don't think I would have liked you much then.
Yeah, but in February 2015, I still remember, February 2nd was a Monday. I couldn't start on February 1st because it was a Sunday. 2015, I joined the Cedar team. I was just an intern, but I was that kid who wanted to do everything. I was just fascinated by the idea of working and spending as many hours as I could. I remember that the CEO at that time, Nasir Saab, great fellow, put me on an hourly page rate, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to figure out a way how I can work more hours to make more money instead of, just getting paid like that. So that sparked this bug in me to just keep working. So I made sure that I was getting exposed to everything in the school. So as an intern, I gave myself this nice fancy title, assistant to the program coordinator, that time a program manager. Worked on community service, worked on student life, helped set up the admissions team, ran the admissions team also for a year, got the whole picture of the school, right? Even college counseling and advisory and stuff like that. But then when I graduated, I fell on some tough times again, and I called up Bilal and I'm like, dude, I need a job. help me figure this out. I had a job offer lined
Where
up.
were you studying for your college?
This was the University of London International Program. So
Okay.
completely it's a program that's done by LSE. It's just housed over here, so you can do it anywhere in the world.
Right.
So I called up Bilal, said I needed a job. I had a job offer lined up in London as well in consultancy. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. And Bilal just says that, okay, fine.
Why couldn't you go?
There was some financial stresses.
Okay.
So it was like if I went, I had my last interview there. And I was at this company called Capco. I emailed them saying that, look, if I come for this interview and I don't get selected, I might not be able to fly back. And, you hear stories that your chacha, taya, mama went to the States and with $10, and फिर Pizza Hut पे काम करके, they started flipping patties and, earned their way to college. But yeah, I think in 2017, times are very different.
Yeah.
Inflation has hit everyone in a very different way. So I didn't go. I stayed back. I had a couple of job offers lined up here, and I literally...
I actually think I gave you an offer you couldn't refuse, maybe. I'd like to believe that.
That too, because at that time, I think, and this is also important for everyone listening as well, or for me personally, is that I seek mentorship, and I saw that in him. So instantly I gravitated towards where I would feel safe and where I'd feel like I'd be nurtured to grow to in whichever direction I'd want to go into. So, in the summers of 2017, I started working full time at Cedar. Now, during the 3 years of university, I wasn't just working at Cedar. I also taught on the side. I was also a fitness trainer as well in my community. So I try to pick up multiple side hustles as well. उस टाइम पे I didn't think I could do acting वरना मैं अपने आप को बेच भी देता online. But yeah, so
he's an old soul, by the way. Very
Yes.
structured in life. Every day is scheduled and timelined in life.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So when Bilal called me back, he's like, look, you can either teach or you can do something in management. And the idea of teaching, as I said, it's a hot job, right? You see there's a lot of money. Now, I taught during university. I taught even when I was in O levels and A levels. But I was like, yeah, I like the connection with people as well. I don't think I would be able to do that in a classroom. I'd rather focus on building something up. Because I also had this entrepreneurial bug. So he's like, okay, he's like, look up Casey Neistat, Simon Sinek, Gary Vee. I'm like, do you want me to be a vlogger for the school? What do you want me to be? He's like, you can do whatever you want. He's like, I'm making an office over here. Literally, 2 by 4 by 15 ki.
Yeah, it was a very weird size. It was 4
like a
by
rectangle.
12.
Yeah.
Like a railway.
What?
It was a corner of the house.
में क्या होता है?
बहुत कुछ हुआ था, by the way. बहुत कुछ हुआ था. Yeah. So he's like, I'm making you this office over here. I'll get you some interns. You have this iMac. You have a camera. You do whatever you want. So I was like, okay, fine. He's like, you can figure out what you want to call the department. I still remember my ID card, my employee ID card said social media executive. और मुझे उस टाइम पे पता ही नहीं था कि अगर मैं social media executive हूँ या मैं head of department हूँ, मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे. So we
end up coming with a good name for the department.
Yeah.
And for you?
I'll take credits. We ended up calling the department the Digital Media and Communications Department, because what we essentially did from the summers of 2017 till the end of, we were both there, was we figured out a way to connect better with the students. Right? We use the power of social media and content creation to not just build a connection with students in campus, but also be with them when they would leave the campus. Not as alumni, as students. Have a constant connection with them. Have a pulse of where they are, what they're feeling. Show to them as that we care. Show to them as we're giving them value constantly. We're talking to them. So we came up with multiple content streams.
By the way, this was new at that time. There's no other school doing it. Forget no other business doing it. Now it's seen second nature here. Obviously, you want to have a social media team. But at that time, nobody was doing this, and the idea was he took this forward and he did it really well.
And people claim that marketing karni hai, school ki marketing karni hai, and very early on I was opposed to that term, especially for education. I'm very opposed to the term of sales and marketing, especially for anything in education, because it's not about that. It's actually about showing to people that you care, that your product is going to help them for the long run, and itself
becomes marketing. Really itself, people will just talk about you.
Yeah. And so that's what we did. So we basically revolutionized the way schools were even talking to their own students. And he sparked this thought in my mind, was that, dude, what if one day this becomes a company? Now, this is 2 months into the full-time job. Kaam actually gaya nahi hai online. He's like, what if this becomes a company on its own? In January 2018, I had the privilege of meeting Nagin Ansari, who in October 2018 would end up becoming my business partner. Now, even during that time, I was still teaching. I started this little side hustle called The Tuition Guys. Or us time pe IGTV, you must have remembered, was new. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to put up videos of me teaching economics on YouTube. I'm going to put it on IGTV. And I'm going to, give in-class tuitions, but I'm going to make like shorter 10-minute videos. Because 10 minute ki time gap thi, I'll just put that up very gangster way. Piche whiteboard hai, writing on that. So all of that happened. Backspace was founded in October 2018. Sorry, I'm going all around the place. But and I started off a digital media and design consultancy, which is actually what we call a creative consultancy. It's a boutique firm where we work with businesses or cause-driven businesses that are just trying to do a good job. So we work with people that we feel are cause-driven, have a very strong sense of purpose, and have their North Star completely tracked and their destination is set. And over the years, we've worked with businesses in the equestrian space. We've worked with sustainability startups. We've worked with CX startups. We've worked with educationists, got exposure to the whole corporate world. And then alongside all of this is then when the idea of Alt Academy was brewing in many different forms. So I had my office of Backspace in one side of the building. Bilal had his own office on another side. After hours, we would sit and we would think about, where is this going? Where are we going to go with, then what's the next phase of education in our space looking like? So a lot of thought process, a lot of brainstorming happened at that time. And then in summers of 2021, I decided to take off my mantle of being a COO at Backspace and join full-time Alt Academy with Bilal.
So Alt Academy, when did you guys officially start, essentially? And when I say start, I mean not for the public.
Okay, so I'll tell you, it was already public in 2018. We were pre-COVID already there.
Achha.
But it was singly handled by me. We had a couple of employees, but it was bootstrapped by me. So this is
कर क्या रहा था उस time पे वो?
हम लोग video content on YouTube for free डाल रहे थे.
ठीक है.
For at least 2 subjects, 3 almost, physics, economics, and chemistry. I was putting out the most content because I had the most time, I guess. I had given up most of my roles in different places. तो हमने कहा कि यार let me, because I really felt this is where it should go. This is where, at least because you see, एजुकेशन के बड़े फॉर्म्स हैं. हम जिस एरिया में आई एम एन एक्सपर्ट इन इज़ प्रॉबली द हाई स्टेक्स A लेवल O लेवल एग्जाम, जिसके लिए बहुत पैसे देते हैं ग्रेड्स आने के लिए. मैं चाह रहा था कि बच्चों के पास कोई जरिया ऐसा हो कि कभी भी पढ़ लें विदाउट पेइंग मच मनी और एनीथिंग एट ऑल. सो एंड एट दैट टाइम आई ट्रूली बिलीव कि बिजनेस शुड बी सस्टेनेबल. ये मैं बात कर रहा हूँ सीडर निक्सर के टाइम पे भी वी वर वेरी gun ho. I was very cognizant about how to generate enough income to make it sustainable. तो होता ये था कि पहले 2 साल में Nixor was successful, breaking even out of the second year. Cedar also the same. But Alt initially I recognized the fact that there is no point of monetizing it. लोगों ने कहा आपने YouTube पे ads नहीं डाले. When your videos are only getting 4,000 views, 5,000 views, there's no point. Because in the world over, जो A levels दे भी रहा बच्चा बहुत कम है. You'll be shocked to hear the total numbers. We think there are too many, they're not. I think chemistry का जो मैं पढ़ा रहा हूँ अभी, और physics भी आप ले लें, similarly, the world over has about 30,000 बच्चा. That's it. So not many people are going to watch that stuff. So I was making content for that, but it was my side hustle. I was just putting in the hours to get it going. We were also working on developing other courses. What can kids do with their time? We were actually making a gap year program with 3 of my, you could say, students who are now working with me full time. Graduates हो चुके थे, काम कर रहे थे. There's another individual, Daniel Khanzada, who's now moved to Canada, but he was very big in pushing me towards looking at the future of work, the future of education. So we've got I've got a whole idea of what
so I'm cutting in, but like our brainstorming session, when I say brainstorming, I don't literally mean that, okay, how could we do this thing better? It was like, this is what's happening. This is where we feel we need to go. And we chalked out roadmaps from what would happen in Pakistan, what would happen in neighboring countries, what would happen in the US and the UK, what would the evolution of technology be like. And this evolution of work also stemmed from seeing that us time pe one belt, one road was coming up. We were even thinking about tracking that whole journey and seeing how could we help improve the entire economy. So we used education as that means to enhance the country, to elevate the country, not as a means to just change the industry or make it marginally better.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So at that time, the first idea was let's at least give the kids enough access to content कि वो पढ़ाई कर लें, अपने grades ला दें, तो जो बाकी चीज़ें में जिसमें उनको really interest है, सीखना है, उसका टाइम बच जाए. Because and kid who's in A-level, O-level, उसके पेरेंट्स भी परेशान होते हैं, सुबह स्कूल जाता है, वहाँ फीस देता है, फिर ट्यूशन होती है. Most of the kids go for tuitions. By the time they're 6 p.m. they're already tired. At that time they want to unwind. They're not going to develop something more. And our problem is as a nation, we have a lot of young kids who want to develop something. They need to develop. Otherwise, as a nation, our economy won't grow. Development nahi hogi. So I wanted them to have more skills and more time on their hands. So that one of the ways was to do this. So 2-3 साल करते रहिए. COVID आया. Everybody became digital. We were already there digital. So we knew exactly क्या होना है. We were there. We did all of that stuff. Once COVID died down, because you see, I needed this to be success also. So I don't want to launch anything during COVID because everybody would feel that आप तो COVID के backbone पे launch कर रहे हैं. So once COVID subsided, everything happened and we made a business plan out of it. This is 2021. And I started asking for money. That's the first time it became from just being bootstrapped to now let's become a startup.
We made it legit.
और अब तो startup का word भी गलत throw down होता है. हर चीज़ is not a startup. When we did startup means you can easily get scale. जो हमने schools बनाए थे वो entrepreneurship थी, business था. Was not startup. This was the first time we started thinking of startup as a business. So I reached around to a lot of people who invested in me in the other projects. If somebody's interested in doing this, so the kind of people, for the first time in my life, I was very cognizant about the kind of people coming in with money also. Because इसके लिए थोड़ी foresight चाहिए. So you want to have people who have the right internal compasses also, and where they think the world is going and Pakistan is going. Because our goal is to not just serve Pakistan but the world. The world only because then you can say we're competing against the best. I actually honestly truly believe. And I'm saying this, I'm pretty humble generally, but I internally believe I am the best A-level chemistry teacher in the world. How do I prove that? I have to be able to sell that in the world, not in Karachi, in one city. So for me, it was also that also. But then we raised a good amount of money. I don't know if we can share that, but we raised a decent amount of money to start our project. And then I asked him he was helping me raise it. So that's when we decided, कि अब हम ये full time कर रहे हैं. We raised it. I quit most of my other commitments anyways. कि हम लोग सिर्फ इस पे फोकस करें. We have a good team now, and the idea is कि it'll take some time, but the idea is to is to make sure that our first phase is to lower the cost massively, 10 times, 10-fold, 1/10 or 1/20th of what a child spends in these 4 years. 10th 11th grade A levels के जब वो काम करेगा तो फिर उसके बाद और चीज़ें करने का टाइम होगा.
So you're talking about essentially high school O and A levels.
बिल्कुल.
And right now is the product shipped to market? I mean,
yes, it is.
Do you have students?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what does it look like?
So basically before we had a paywall, over the last 3 years we've actually served over 55,000 students, be it on YouTube or other SaaS platforms. If you edtech के निकलते रहते थे, because most edtech start with technology first. We wanted to start with education first and the tech comes later. So we are very much okay with using third-party tools where educationists can use and put their content forward. So इनके मिला के हमारी community 50-60 हज़ार लोगों की थी over 3 years. This last month is when we're testing up a paywall. So we're in beta phase of that paywall. So we just set it up about 2 weeks ago. We've got good traction, the traction at which we want. We don't claim to be going to a unicorn, because we know it's a niche market. Jitni badi bhi duniya mein hai, O levels hai. But the idea would be that whatever learnings we can take from one area, we can then apply it to other grades or other boards. But you see, you got to start from an area you have insight of. A lot of startups are only bothered about getting an idea, not realizing that you have to have a certain insight into how you see the world and the future of that industry before you come up with some idea. Because if you come with an idea that you could have thought about in 2 months sitting in a drawing room, somebody else can also. And if it's good for you, it's good for them.
Okay, so अगर मैं थोड़ा सा conversation को थोड़ा what would the word be? Switch करता हूँ चलें.
I do want to add one thing though.
Yeah.
I think this might not come up again, but because he mentioned about how he was hired, I wanted to put out a point out there that I really truly feel that one of the best things when we're hiring for people is that we should, especially in the modern day now, we should really, unless we're hiring a doctor or an engineer, those only 2 specific areas. उसके अलावा we should only hire for attitude. And the skills can be learned. And होता ये है कि आई हैव बीन वेरी लकी एटलीस्ट इन माई डोमेन्स ऑफ एजुकेशन के आई हैव बीन मोर राइट देन रॉन्ग एंड व्हेन आई हैव टेकन अ गट कॉल or an instinct call on hiring somebody, even if there was no place in the company for them yet. And you, like he's an example of, like, we had no department, so I asked him, "You looking for a job? Come, let's set up a department." And that way, I think if people recognize that in most places, that's where innovations do occur, because innovations can never occur in a company where you have standard roles. Unka kaam hoga, as the ship is running, you keep running it. But to have some parts of innovation, you have to let some people loose free.
Yeah.
And that's what I just want to add that there.
Makes sense. Conversation को मैं थोड़ा सा again switch करता हूँ.
बिल्कुल.
And I'm gonna sort of put you in the line of fire.
Sure.
We've had Nearpair here. We've had a bunch of other sort of edtech plays here. In fact, Nearpair से पहले, I do believe there is
Adcasa as well.
Adcasa, they're doing some really interesting work with TikTok as well. पहला तो मैं आपसे ये पूछूंगा, how do you differentiate yourself from a lot of these other players? Because I feel like आपने high school बोला ना, तो high school is that one play that everybody and their moms are really focusing on right now. And somehow it hasn't been able to get that traction. Maybe it's because consumer psychology ऐसे sort of react करती है कि वो कहती है कि यार नहीं हमें तो जब तक brick and mortar नहीं होगा, जब तक शॉप में लाइक एक बिल्डिंग नहीं होगी तो हम नहीं करेंगे. Then again, maybe let's start with this question first.
So there is that. There is absolutely that. I think there's more of it. There was more of it before than now. One of the most important insights I noticed that happened during COVID, and I think most parents or many parents did not internalize that. But what they saw happening during Zoom was they saw exactly what was going on in a classroom. They felt that it was only happening because they were online. But whatever happened in the classroom was being mimicked on Zoom. And they got to see the level of engagement in the classroom. Some were not happy with it. Many were not happy with it. Because our education system is broke. It's actually broke. You don't let a kid, younger adults explore themselves. एक तो वो गया था. But I forgot the question you were asking. I'm so sorry.
How do you differentiate yourself?
Oh yeah, so that part of that. So now when we started working on this, when I so far I'm actually been pretty happy to see. I mean, I shouldn't say this, competition is also good, but most people that look at this industry right now are tech first.
Right.
Every single startup they might have hired educationists, but they're not sitting at the decision makers table. They're all either tech or business graduates, and that's been the bigger problem in the ed tech space. आप कहीं भी लोग यार हम founder आके हम ये create कर रहे हैं. Most of them have not spent more than a year in a classroom. The reason why we are confident we are different is because not just me, but at least 3 other, you could say, founding members have had 20 years of experience in a classroom. And 20 years can be looked off as, yeah, you're stale now. But we are still those people who, on an average, and this is a big industry in Karachi, fill up 80 plus students' classrooms every day.
Right.
And they're packed to the brim.
So I mean, you obviously understand the model, and
not just that, also we also bring credibility. The kids know कि यार इनसे पढ़ना है. We studied from them, or they're popular. So that's one thing we bring to the table, and most ed techs are more concerned with spending the first money on tech. We are very much okay with using SaaS as much as possible that exists already out there, which is third-party tools जो है आप उसको connect करने साथ, and we are building the learning community.
So essentially like Teachable or a lot
Think
of
of Fake Teachable, Kajabi. These are all tools available, and now you got the community platforms like Tribe and Circle and many more tools out there. Chat हो गया तो आप वो use कर लें, Slack जो काम भी use कर. All you gotta do is just kids are okay. What I've realized also is kids don't want one thing that fits everything. They're okay with using one app for one thing, one app for the other thing, as long as they get what they need.
Right.
Which is high quality instruction, which is saving them time and getting them things in a quick way, not wasting their time.
Makes sense.
So because उनकी time बहुत कम बच गया है, so you want to save their time basically.
Right. But alongside this, I would say is that where there's the expertise as well, is that there's that expertise to be able to do something better too, right? 20 years of teaching experience allows you to see the entire syllabus and break it down into little nuggets, into golden pieces that is just going to save the kid time, right? And that's another point too, is that we have really focused on trimming down the entire content. Cambridge outlines every one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, Bilal, 180 hours to teach.
So yeah, this is something that I'm sorry. So sorry about that. Yeah, so I'll tell you something. Normally, let me give some context to people who don't know this. अगर एक बच्चा A-level स्कूल में जाता है कराची, लाहौर, इस्लामाबाद में, वो पूरे साल देता है 50,000 per month. He pays 6 lakh rupees a month. 6 lakh rupees for the whole year to go to an A-level school. spends hours every day. In fact, if you actually do the math, they spend only 25, 28 weeks learning in a classroom. You're paying for the whole year, you're actually only learning half a year. Second, the content that we have been able to compress into time, the word I use is compress because you can actually take any one course and about 80 hours along with practice you can actually take the whole course. जो पूरे साल पढ़ते हैं आप 80 घंटों में आप ऑनलाइन पढ़ सकते हैं वीडियोस के साथ 50 hours just for video and then 30 hours for practice 40 hours and that's all you need and that's the part that we're trying to get to the kids कि look you can do this whole thing that people are saying यार 2 साल लगेंगे आप 6 महीने में कर सकते हो सारे सब्जेक्ट्स का and that's the insight that we want to give to the kids and coming from people who are teachers अगर कोई बाहर का बंदा बोले कि यार जल्दी कर देंगे तो वो अग्री भी ना करे शायद but we've done this we know how and honestly speaking there was a time where we had no technology तो the teacher classroom में जाना ही पढ़ाई कर सकता था अब आ चुकी है but we are resisting that change because it's still making us too much money to do it physically.
Right. अगर मैं बात करता हूँ देखिए एक तो आपने ये कहा ना कि और रादर मैं जब बाकी प्लेयर्स को देखता हूँ तो मुझे ज़्यादातर ये नज़र आता है कि they're not really reimagining the school experience. What they're doing is they're reimagining the tutor experience.
बिल्कुल.
अच्छा, on some level it does make sense to me as well. You're taking an audience that already has a culture that they adhere to, an understanding of what schooling is, and you're not necessarily going out there and selling them the idea of a digital first school. What you're saying is कि go to your school, the school is going to be crappy, sure, but शाम को तुमने आना ही है ट्यूशन्स पे. And so if I revert back to my high school experience, honestly, my high school experience was mostly me. I mean, I had 3% on average attendance across multiple courses.
3%.
3%. And
Which school was this?
Beacon House, Banigal actually. We were at the foothill of Imran Khan's house.
Okay.
And so वहाँ पर जो है I was running their MUN. I was taking the teams to YLDS.
Wasn't that real learning for you?
That is, to be very honest. I mean,
I think that's what schools should really be doing.
A lot of what I did there was what helped build me. University didn't, by and large. My high school did. But
I bet most of the time that was there, that built you, was spent outside the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, 3%.
Oh, 3%. Yes, you were already outside the classroom.
Yeah, so
yes.
So but ज़ाहिर पढ़ाई भी करनी थी, तो पढ़ाई के लिए हम जाया करते होते थे. Anyone who's from Islamabad, the main city Islamabad, knows of this place that used to be there. It was called Asas. जहाँ पर basically Islamabad का any and everyone from Beacon cities. So Islamabad जो main downtown Islamabad है ना, इसके कुछ legacy schools, city school था, Beacon House था, Roots था, Head Start था, Frobels था. और ये you would know any and everyone over there across वो सारे के सारे इकट्ठे होते थे असास में.
ठीक है.
एक असास थी
The teachers.
The teachers and the students,
okay.
right? So some of the best teachers were here, and then all of the students would then take classes in the evening with these students. जिस तरह, for example, मेरी जो economics मैंने पास की थी, there was this PTI senator now, Sadakat Abbasi, who was an economics teacher at the time, and I think owned Asas as well. ये brand name teachers हैं. जैसे आपके कराची में I'm sure brand name teachers होंगे. जो कि ये सदाकत अब्बासी थे, फिर एक बशीर अब्बासी साहब थे जो SAT के भी आपको करवा देते थे, इंग्लिश भी पढ़ाते थे वगैरह वगैरह. And so if I was a student back in the day, I would have really, मैं अगर utility देखूँ, मैं कहूँ कि यार अच्छा what is powerful, मैं कहूँगा मुझे अगर कोई कहता कि यार Beacon House ना जाओ, ABC Academy चले जाओ for your schooling, that would be a major cynical moment for me. And even looking back, I wouldn't do that because Beacon House taught me a lot.
बिल्कुल.
मुझे अगर कोई कहता कि यार वो 6 बजे तुम गए हो, जिसने मुझे कुछ ज़्यादा नहीं, उसने ये कर दिया क्योंकि मैंने पढ़ाई तो की नहीं ना. तो ट्यूशन ने मुझे ये कर दिया कि मुझे पास करा दिए लेवल्स, वरना तो मेरे यूज़ आते.
समझ आ गए.
तो मैं कहता कि यार वो भी बड़ी एवरेज किस्म की होती थी. वो टीचर बस आते थे, वो आके बोलते थे और फिर उसके बाद बस आखिर में नोट्स ही ढूंढ रहे होते थे,
खुद ही पढ़े होते थे, एंड में खुद ही पढ़ रहे
होते थे. एंड अगर वही चीज़ मुझे कोई बेहतर एक्सपीरियंस मिलता है, आई वाज अ टेकी, आई वाज अ कंप्यूटर साइंस, गोइंग टुवर्ड्स अ कंप्यूटर साइंस ट्रैक एज वेल, तो आई वुड हैव लव्ड दैट, राइट. सो पहला क्वेश्चन तो मेरा ये है कि you guys, as per my understanding, are trying to reimagine a school experience.
Absolutely.
Whereas everybody else that I talk to is like, yeah, we don't want to disrupt schools, we want to disrupt the academies.
No, we want to disrupt schools. The academies are already out the window. In fact, I'll tell you. Yes, there are still people who go for tuitions, but what's happening, at least in the cities in Lahore and Karachi, is that they're getting better teachers. Teachers are becoming better, and they're all teaching in a school. So it's not like you need to go to Sham, unless of course you're into all the activities that you said. And the way we want to disrupt schools is that we want them to understand that this is the only way to educate now. What your experience was, imagine digitizing that. The morning time should only be involved in projects and activities. And what we want to do is the kids should study because honestly speaking, these A-level subjects and O-level subjects are the same every time. I've been teaching the exact same thing for 20 years. Yes, your delivery gets better and everything, but it's almost the same content. What I see the future of education is this, that even if we have to have these buildings where parents have to send their kids, we want to revolutionize what happens inside them. Kids should only go to school to engage in social learning, which is with other friends. Because when you're sitting in a lecture in a classroom, it's not social learning. You can't say a word to anybody, let alone talk to your friends. But talking to your friends is the most natural thing that comes to us. So what we've done in schools is we've removed all the fun out of them. मैं अभी तक पढ़ाता हूँ 1-2 घंटे स्कूल में. When a kid enters my class, उसकी शक्ल में ना वो कहते हैं ना सारी जान निकली हुई होती है. He's tired. He doesn't want to be here. And our idea is this, kid, that's fine. You don't have to be here. Do what you were doing in your morning times. MUN, sports, projects, whatever, citizenship, building skills, things that can only be done on one or few or one-on-one level. Let's say you want to start doing lighting, learn lighting for this. You can't sit in a 40-room classroom and learn this. You have to take the lights and move it around. ये होना चाहिए सुबह. जो हम पढ़ा रहे हैं उसके लिए you don't need a 50% 100% का lecture hall. ये video है, ये देख लो. And it's not a new concept. It's what we call a flipped classroom model. ये Khan Academy भी कर रही है अपने World Schoolhouse में. They've partnered that school with Arizona State University. And there are many other schools trying this out now. कि होता क्या है simply this. The role of the school and the teacher has to drastically change. A teacher should not be the person who's standing there to give me expert knowledge. Because वो वैसी लोग कम हैं, तो वो आपकी इकोनॉमिक्स की आउट हुई हुई ना सिस्टम की. एक्सपर्ट्स कम हैं, like people like me who charge a lot of money for the few hours of their time because हम experts हैं. अगर हम मेरा digital, because yes, a live class might have more interaction, but the benefit of not having that is this, कि your kid can spend the whole day or whenever, the whole week if he wants to, in developing other skills, literacies and social learning skill.
All forms of 21st century skills, right? So you have like these survival skills that you need. Sorry, I'm cutting you off, but we often talk about on an individual level. Your experiences, right, from BMI, all the extracurriculars that you did, your work, your profession, you did computer science as well. Now you could have stuck to that track, right? And I've seen your podcast, you did. But you had exposure to so many other areas that got you to be a more well-rounded individual. Right, schools, US.
I think more than just well-rounded, it gave you the ability to connect dots in areas people were not connecting dots.
Exactly.
That's the thing. लोग example देते हैं Steve Jobs की, उसकी example होती है उसने एक font का course ले लिया था and all of this. It's literally connecting dots. I'll tell you, the reason I'm sitting here is because I took random courses in university, which was intro to psychology, intro to Middle Eastern history, to computer science and database systems. Because that exposure is what connects. YouTube kya hai? It's the biggest exposure tool in the world. It's the biggest teacher in the world. So when we talk about innovating and all of these things, I'm sorry.
No, but this is true. That's like we can spar on this one because see, schools expect their kids to become more well-rounded. Schools expect their kids to do a lot of ECAs, but they also expect their kids to go to class, be attentive in class, get the grades as well, and then go to a fancy university that then they can show to their alumni as well as here you go.
So I think I understand that. Mera sawal isme probably ye aayega, and based on what I'm hearing from you guys as well is that you're essentially giving classes for specific subjects, chemistry, math, physics, and so on and so forth. And I'm hearing, when I speak to any edtech player, I hear the same things because obviously they're all trying to solve the same problem, or at least in terms of the vision document are pretty much aligned. The problem that I see is कि यार आपने ये तो कह दिया कि हमें इस broken system को fix करना है.
बिल्कुल.
ठीक है. Broken system क्या है? Structured है. Schools जो है वो कहते हैं कि यार हम आपके बच्चे को well rounded बनाएंगे, लेकिन हमें पता है कि हमारा structure जो है वो आपके बच्चे को well rounded. That It's an oxymoron. It defeats the entire purpose, right? To say that हमारे ये routine follow होगा और उस routine की basis के ऊपर. I was a horrible student for my administration because I was just never good at structured programmed systems. और मेरा ये होता था कि मुझे हर वक्त कॉन्स्टेंटली कुछ ना कुछ डिफरेंट हॉप अराउंड चाहिए होता था. वो मेरा हाई स्कूल में भी था, वो यूनिवर्सिटी. एब्सोल्युटली. And most of the people who actually sit on that side of the table, to be very honest, are like that. So you can begin to see कि leadership skills के अंदर एक element ये आता है कि यार मुझे जहाँ पे मेरा दिमाग जा रहा है ना, मुझे उसमें expand करने दिया जाए. So अगर मैं इस edtech model पे भी आऊँ तो इस पे भी most of the people are saying कि यार मैं, so again they're not necessarily redesigning the model. What they're doing is they're digitizing the model. बड़ा फर्क है.
Exactly.
और वो उसमें आखिर में ये कह रहे हैं, वो कह रहे हैं कि यार ठीक है हम तुम्हें वीडियो ऑन डिमांड दे रहे हैं, सो नाउ योर डेज आर फ्री. मेरा पाकिस्तान में टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम जो मैंने रियलाइज़ किया है इन टर्म्स ऑफ स्किल बिल्डिंग एंड एजुकेशन, दोनों को मैं कनेक्ट ही करूँगा, वो ये रहा है कि वी हैव डन एन इनक्रेडिबल जॉब एट आइडेंटिफाइंग द प्रॉब्लम एंड मोटिवेटिंग द इंडिविजुअल कि यार भाई तूने अपने आप को फिक्स करना है. ठीक है, अब पूरी जनता वेट कर रही है, अच्छा जी फिक्स कर, तो ये तो समझ आ गई फिक्स करना है, हम जिस तरह चल रहे हैं उस तरह नहीं चल सकते. और कोई बंदा डायरेक्शन नहीं दे रहा, लिटरली कोई बंदा डायरेक्शन नहीं दे रहा, विच इज व्हाई यू हैव अ बंच ऑफ क्वैक्स सेलिंग यू अ न्यू. वो आके कहते हैं यार ये कर लो तो 10 लाख रुपया बन जाएगा, ये कर लो तो $2000 बन जाएगा. यू सीन दैट, you've heard the quackery that's going on across the internet. And so the reason why I'm saying this is because मैं थोड़ा सा फ्लिप करता हूँ, give me some time.
बिल्कुल.
इन द एज ऑफ आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, मैं कंटेंट से मेरा ज़ाहिर ताल्लुक है. आपने ऑफ कैमरा पहले भी बताया, वन ऑफ द वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग्स दैट यू डिड वाज द खान अकेडमी मॉडल ऑफ क्रिएटिंग सॉर्ट ऑफ माइक्रो मॉड्यूल्स, व्हिच आई कॉल द माइक्रो मॉड्यूल्स. के यू नॉट नेसेसरली सेइंग कि भाई क्रेडिट आवर सिस्टम के अंदर घंटे की क्लास है. यू आर सेइंग कि यार मेरे नगेट्स ऑफ इन्फॉर्मेशन मैं थ्रो करूँगा बिकॉज दैट इज़ हाउ द न्यू एज कंज्यूमर honestly consumes content and information, right? So मैं maximum भी पीक करूँगा तो आपके केस में कितना है, 15 मिनट, 15 मिनट्स का मैं एक वो थ्रो करूँगा. प्रॉब्लम मेरा इसमें ये आ रहा है कि अगर तो वो स्ट्रक्चर्ड है ना, जो जिस तरह डिज़ाइन हुआ हुआ है. सो मैं अगर मैं कहता हूँ कि मेरी लर्निंग है और उस लर्निंग के अंदर मैं जाता हूँ, मुझे जाके केमिस्ट्री के 15 मिनट का माइक्रो मॉड्यूल है और फिर लेकिन मुझे अगला माइक्रो मॉड्यूल 15 मिनट का ही देखना है, तो मेरा दिमाग बंद होना शुरू हो जाएगा.
बिल्कुल हो जाएगा.
ऑन द अदर हैंड, अगर मेरे पास एक प्लेटफॉर्म है जिस प्लेटफॉर्म में जाके मैं 15 मिनट का केमिस्ट्री का वो माइक्रो मॉड्यूल देख रहा हूँ, बट उसके अगला जो माइक्रो मॉड्यूल मेरे पास आया है वो होम इकोनॉमिक्स का है, उससे अगला माइक्रो मॉड्यूल जो मेरे पास आया है वो क्या आपका एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सब्जेक्ट चल रहा है लेवल्स में आजकल,
मीडिया स्टडीज.
नहीं,
टूरिज्म,
ग्लोबल पर्सपेक्टिव्स, ग्लोबल पर्सपेक्टिव्स का आता है, उसके बाद हिस्ट्री का आता है. द प्रॉब्लम इज अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स व्हेन पीपल आर ट्राइंग टू फाइंड द प्रॉब्लम इन द फर्स्ट प्लेस, they are finding a problem in the broken system and they're saying कि हम इस broken system के अंदर ही किस तरह से करेंगे. And a lot of them are saying we're radically redesigning that. They're not. Radically redesigning means that मैं आज एक ऐसी चीज़ बना रहा हूँ जिसमें आज से 10 साल बाद A levels को लोग भूल जाएंगे.
बिल्कुल.
लोग एक्चुअली मेरी सर्टिफाइड, मतलब हम इतने डरपोक हैं, टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, हम इतने डरपोक हैं कि हम ये भी नहीं मान सकते कि कल को अमेरिकन यूनिवर्सिटी हमारे सर्टिफिकेशन को मानेगी. सोच की बात है ना.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
कि यार जब तक कि ए लेवल्स का ठप्पा नहीं लगेगा, यार ठीक है मैं बहुत रेडिकल हूँ लेकिन यार यानी ए लेवल्स का ठप्पा तो चाहिए ना, बच्चे को आगे यूनिवर्सिटी तो जाना है.
So I can give you, if I've been given a few minutes to answer this, if on the face of it you're absolutely right, it might not look like कोई ज़्यादा innovation हो रही है जो हम कर रहे हैं. उसमें एक मल्टीपल प्रॉब्लम्स भी हैं, एंड आई विल टेल यू व्हाट वी आर डूइंग इज व्हाट यू आर सीइंग अस डू इज़ द फर्स्ट स्टेप टू अ मल्टी स्टेप प्रोसेस. बट उस प्रोसेस के कुछ लिमिटेशंस भी हैं. बट बिफोर आई टेल यू व्हाट वी डूइंग, लेट मी, एंड सो दैट आई कैन आंसर द क्वेश्चंस, एंड वी वांट पीपल टू नो कि वी डोंट वांट टू जस्ट क्या कहते हैं ना, monopolize what we're doing. People can do, we want to spread the idea around, because the more you do this, the better everything becomes.
The better the system becomes.
The better the system becomes. So एक सबसे पहले मसला ये है, and this is a real problem in Pakistan. You cannot do any undergrad study. So we are actually waiting for every company in the Pakistan to say we don't need bachelors. The day that happens, जिस तरह Facebook ने कहा था, I think Google ने तो कहा ही कहा था कि you don't need that. The day that happens and that comes from the industry, then बिकॉज उसके अलावा आपको क्या चाहिए, बैचलर्स चाहिए. आप अमेरिका को भूल जाएं. आप तो बात अमेरिका करना है ना, पढ़ने की, बाहर जाना है, हमें एक उसके लिए लेवल्स करते हैं बिकॉज एक कोरिलेशन सिस्टम है. लेकिन अगर आपको पाकिस्तानी बैचलर्स करना है तो आपको HEC की सर्टिफिकेशन चाहिए, जिसमें you've heard of these new systems called the American school, and I spent 6 months trying to figure out how we can start an American school system in Pakistan. उसकी भी परमिशन चाहिए अमेरिकन स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट से, आप नहीं कर सकते. आप आ जाओ चलो यार IB कर लेता हूँ मैं, आपको पता है आप IB भी पूरा नहीं कर सकते जो यूरोपियन सिस्टम है, बिकॉज यू स्टिल हैव टू गिव पाक स्टडी इस्लामिक उर्दू जो आपको आना है वापस O levels पे. अच्छा, द फनी थिंग इज अबाउट हमारे हैं इतने लकीर के फ़कीर है पाकिस्तानी, बिकॉज यू ऑल्सो हैव टू मेक अ वायबल बिजनेस मॉडल. In the world over, there are 2 or 3 big players in the A-level O-level market. एक Cambridge है, एक edXL है. Cambridge ने अपना ही जो 11वीं जमात का एग्ज़ाम होता है उसको हम O levels बोलते हैं, वो चेंज हो चुका है दुनिया में. It's called IGCSE. इंग्लैंड में it's called GCSEs. We are so stuck with the name that Cambridge has tried everything for us to change to IGCSE. We Pakistanis don't. Schools don't want to change just the exam they give. जबकि मैं पढ़ाता हूँ IGCSE O levels. There is no difference. There's a difference of 5%.
If anything, it's actually better. There's a longer subject list, which means that there's more variety for the students. But we're a bit averse to even accepting that change too.
And the second problem is that government is not changing anything. So you have to do these subjects. So after trying a lot of things.
So thoda na pause. I'm not necessarily saying you don't do these subjects. To be very honest, chemistry is a very powerful subject. There's a reason why some foundation subjects, general sciences के, math के, language के, वो आपको पढ़ाए जाते हैं, world over पढ़ाए जाते हैं.
बिल्कुल.
What I'm saying is, how do you integrate diversity?
So now, sorry.
So how do you integrate diversity within your education learning outcomes, where the child can sure, अगर आपका ये प्रॉब्लम है तो मैं कहता हूँ कि ठीक है यार, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि सिर्फ मेरे सिस्टम पे आ जाओ, बट मेरे सिस्टम से गुजर के ना आखिर में, मतलब मैं A levels की बात करता हूँ.
बिल्कुल.
A levels में हम 3 सब्जेक्ट पढ़ाते हैं.
बिल्कुल.
मेरे हिसाब से ना, टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, एक बच्चे के दिमाग की ये तौहीन है कि वो अपने 2 साल के अंदर सिर्फ 3 ट्रैक्स को फिगर आउट कर रहा है.
कंप्लीटली एग्रीड.
ठीक है. उस एज के अंदर उस बच्चे का दिमाग बहुत आराम से वो कोडिंग भी सीख सकता है.
बिल्कुल.
वो आर्ट भी सीख सकता है, वो हिस्ट्री भी पढ़ सकता है, वो ये XYZ चीज़ें कर सकता है.
बिल्कुल.
और उसमें, और हमारे पेरेंट्स ने और हमारे इंडस्ट्री ने क्या किया कि A levels वालों ने तो ये सोचा होगा, उन्होंने कहा होगा यार तुम्हें तो बस सर्टिफिकेशन चाहिए ना, ये 3 करो और बाकी तो गो फ्लाई विद द विंड. हमने कहा यार व्हाट विंड, जस्ट डू द सर्टिफिकेशन एंड फोकस एंटायरली ऑन दैट, एंड देन यही तुम्हारा सक्सेस का मेट्रिक है.
बिल्कुल.
जिसकी वजह से वो अजीब गरीब किस्म के डब्बे बन गए विद एब्सोल्यूट नो फ्लेवर एंड नो सब्सटेंस. एंड सो अ लॉट ऑफ दीज लाइक मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है, मेरे साथ क्या और बहुत सारे लोगों का एक्सपीरियंस था, यार A levels तो हमने भी पास कर लिया.
बिल्कुल.
ठीक है, बट हाउ डू यू इंटीग्रेट? एंड सो विद व्हाट्स गोइंग ऑन विद द नियर पीयर्स ऑफ, अब मैं नियर पीयर का बात कह रहा हूँ, हमारे भाई आपका बहुत अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है, दिमाग में बाबा वो आता है, सॉरी.
They're very popular.
They're very popular, they're very good. But with the near peers of the world and with all academies of the world, अगर तो बात ये आती है कि यार तुम केमिस्ट्री वहाँ कर रहे हो, यहाँ ये कर लो, तो देन आई डोंट सी एनी यूटिलिटी अनलेस यू से कि तुम केमिस्ट्री वहाँ कर रहे हो, यहाँ की करो, लेकिन केमिस्ट्री के साथ मैं तुम्हें भाई ऐसी चीज़ें सिखाऊंगा ना, तुम्हारा दिमाग फट जाएगा. एंड देन आई स्टार्ट बिल्डिंग माई ट्रैक अकॉर्डिंगली कि वो आपको माइक्रो मॉड्यूल्स और भी साथ साथ थ्रो कर रहे हैं कि जिसमें करते करते आप केमिस्ट्री भी सीख गए और 4 और चीज़ें भी सीख गए.
Sorry.
Then after you.
No, that generally is part of the plan. What you're saying is not something that we've not thought about and are actually working on. Okay, we have to give them something else. The problem is that adoption ही नहीं अभी हुई इस एक idea की. See, it's like that. When Google came, they were not the first search engine. उससे पहले Yahoo था, Alta Vista था. Right. They made it better. Right now, we're not even there yet. We not even have people who are using Alta Vista. People are still thinking कि नहीं क्लासरूम जाएगा. अभी तो पेरेंट्स को देखें, because unless you become sustainable, unless you have a $1 billion fund, you have to find some sustainability somewhere. Our biggest customers are parents. They are, if honest, what you talked about now, if enough parents talk like you, the schools wouldn't do what they're doing. You know what, schools are getting away with this because parents are not bothered about this. So first of all, we have to get the parents to be figuring out कि this is a form of saving your money. एक कहते हैं ना, आपको ट्रस्ट बिल्ड करना है. I mean, trust can be built on 2 things. यार your idea, आपने बोला आपका आइडिया रेडिकल है. The problem is that we are very good at trying a new restaurant. We'll say यार एक बड़ा फंकी आइडिया, let's try that. न्यू ड्रिंक है. एजुकेशन में लोग ज़्यादा कंजर्वेटिव हो जाते हैं, स्पेशली where we come from in Karachi. As much as we like to talk about Karachi being very up there and hip, Karachi में actually people are more conservative about changing anything about their schooling. एक बच्चा स्कूल में जाता है, वो वहीं रहता है. मैंने देखा लाहौर में बच्चे चेंज भी करते हैं स्कूलिंग, कराची में नहीं, यार सुबह पहले साल वहाँ गया वहीं रहेगा. सो एक तो वो माइंड शिफ्ट होना कि there's an alternate in the world. So the problem that you were saying with the other edtechs is also adoption. That parents are not even thinking this is the right model to adopt in the first place. Then we come to this care how it's delivered. I agree with you, KR. There is a very easy way of integrating all of this stuff. We've tried this model with Cedar Pehle. When I was running the school also, we used to have something called core courses. These were courses that were mandatory for the child to take in addition to the 3 A levels. There were 8 of these in their 2 years. उसमें graphic design से लेके world politics, history of the Second World War, Cold War, multiple चीज़ें सिखाई. आप बच्चे के पास जो मर्जी कर ले और इसका कोई एग्जाम नहीं होता था. And some kids would never study, but some kids really took those classes. The problem was that the economics came into play. Many parents said कि times हो रहा है मुझे बच्चों को grade चाहिए सिर्फ. So and if the kids are not getting the grade, the parents blame those courses. कि यार वो वहाँ पढ़ा था ना इसलिए उसने पढ़ा नहीं इसके लिए आप बंद कर दो इसको. The problem is parents were not seeing it. This is a few years ago only problem. You have to have a कहते हैं ना उसको critical mass चाहिए आपको कोई चीज़ करने के लिए. So we are still developing. So I have not given up on that idea of what you just mentioned के courses. We actually, by the way, we've had a couple of curriculum developers develop at least 6 of those courses, which involve OECD की claim. OECD, I'm sure you heard the organization. There's a group called P21. They have come up with a list of literacies, skills, and attitudes that the next generation of learners have to have. So we actually designed those courses from the ground up. We've not made them yet because they were to be delivered in person. Now, like I said to you, कुछ चीज़ें in person, हर चीज़ हम वीडियो पे नहीं कर सकते. ये जो चीज़ है ना, जो हम अभी बात Alt Academy कर रहे हैं, this is, I actually have been teaching this for 20 years and I'm telling you this is the crappiest thing in the world. कि हम बच्चे को 3 सब्जेक्ट का एग्जाम दिलाना. आई एम कंप्लीटली ऑन विद यू बिकॉज आई फील आई वांट टू पुट माई सेल्फ एंड एवरीबडी हु डज व्हाट आई डू आउट ऑफ बिजनेस. ये जो चीज़ें ऑलमोस्ट फ्री मिल जाएंगी ना, फ्री मिल जाएंगी, तो फिर हम अटेंशन आफ्टर 6 months और a year, दिस कैन हैपन टुडे, इट कैन ओनली टेक सम टाइम. पेरेंट्स सडनली रियलाइज कि यार ये जो चीज़ बच्चा पढ़ रहा है ये 3 महीने में पढ़ सकता है, 10,000 रुपये पढ़ सकता है, जिसके लिए इसको 6 लाख और 1 साल ज़ाया नहीं करना है. अब मैं अपने बच्चे को क्या सिखा सकता हूँ? You have to give the parent that bandwidth for their child. So that's when that comes in. And eventually a kid will say, yeah, this O-level, A-level stuff is boring.
Yeah.
And I know it's boring and it is. Yeah. And that's fine. We'll figure out a way to interweave that into the real learning that is supposed to take place. Think about sciences. Real science or engineering happens in a lab. आप वहाँ बनाना चीज़ें सीखते हो. हम तो नहीं करते लैब, हम सिर्फ लैब एग्जाम के लिए कराते हैं. क्यों? बिकॉज सब ने कहा वहाँ रिजल्ट लाने हैं. मैंने आपसे कहूँगा कि there's a tipping point happening waiting to be happen. Either the companies say कि हमें यूनिवर्सिटी डिग्री नहीं चाहिए, तो बच्चा बोलेगा हमें we don't have to go to university. Then we don't have to do the requirements because जो HEC requirements हैं are only for university. Honestly speaking, you don't have to do A levels. You don't have to do inter also, right? So once those requirements and which are becoming more and more flexible, I predict 2, 3, 5 साल में हम हो जाएंगी. So we want to gear towards that.
And operationally, we're structured for that too, right? So like this talk, this track that we've gotten on also about more of a liberal format, a more personalized format as well. We have one eye on, everyone says okay, they have one eye on the future, but when I say okay, we have one eye on the future, we're looking at how parents are going to perceive Alt Academy 10 years down the line, right? Parents like yourself who have their child in the very early ages and are thinking about what's high school going to look like, what's middle school going to look like for Raphael, right? And then over here, we also have one eye on what the learner of the future will look like, right? There's 2 different decision makers over here, the 2 different stakeholders, both of them have to be catered to differently as well. Schools in the past have seen that, parents actually in the past or even up until now will see that, okay, my child, as Bilal mentioned, I'm going to get a referral from either my older kid or my daughter's kid, my के भाई की बेटी या whatever, and then or they're going to look at what's happening in their community as well. Now looking at these different behavior patterns, we've also started tracking out how do we, number one, if parents themselves are seeing they have to be engaging with their own sense of community to make a better informed decision for their child, that's exactly what they're hoping for their kid to also have one day, is a group of people that they can rely on, is a group of people that they can grow from and learn from as well, that they can seek some kind of solace with as well, or some kind of community with as well. And that's what we're focusing on too, because all of the learning that you had was not just experiential, but was also very communal as well, right? All these leadership, as you mentioned, YLES, debating, all of those things, they require a lot of community aspects to it too, which unfortunately can only be done in the best way possible once it's in a physical setting.
Right.
Digitally, you have to start getting kids to understand also. You have to start getting students to understand is that there is a need for that.
Right.
Which is why today we've also started off with the guidance program altogether. So you've got one track that just makes sure that your A-level prep, your exam, test, assignment prep is all done in a spick and span way. But also, you're not, just like when you're in school, you're not just studying for the whole year. You're doing extracurriculars, you're in sports, you're prepping for your college applications. Similarly, over here, now kids have interests around gaming, around crypto, around, going DIY with things as well. And we've made these different forums, these different spaces altogether. But most importantly, there's also now this requirement, there's this need also, which unfortunately we're a bit late to the game as a society, is focusing on well-being, right? Social, emotional, mental well-being, all of those things have to be taken care of. That's also something that we need to be talking about. That's also where some space that we have to kind of, that's an area that has to be ingrained into everybody's operational plan, I feel.
Makes sense. If I were to pick a few things from what you said, एक तो आपने बोला कि customers are parents, and I think that's a very, very important point right there. And so you really have to build trust with the right customer who's paying, not with for a lot of people, they're trying to focus on, even with a customer centric approach, they're thinking, यार consumer मेरा जो student है वो क्या चाहता है तो मैं उसके around अपने आप को design करूँ. But the decision makers are not the students. No matter how flashy or consumer driven it is, the fact is, in terms of a paywall, the person paying for it
is the parent.
And so it's for the child to go out there and convince their parent, listen, like, this is the modern world where digital is the primary thing. That's close to impossible unless you have very, very progressive parents. And so the adoption then becomes more complicated and so on and so forth. Achha, yahan par I would want you to take off your academic hat.
Sure.
And put on your startup hat.
Bilkul.
Right? As a startup founder. and give me an insight, not just with yourself, but I was trying to do some research recently for let's call it a project that I'm working on. And I looked at the edtech space in Pakistan across the board. And what I found was you primarily have two sorts of people working in the space. You either have individuals who are looking at scale, and anyone who's looking at scale is focusing on one area only, and that is high school students. I don't know why that's so. But it's exclusively high school students or specific CSS or इस तरह की वो extra 4-5 SAT, GRE उस तरह की चीज़ें सिखाते हैं आपको. And then you have these skill-based platforms that are exclusively focusing on boot camps because उनका quality का एक problem आ जाता है. तो वो कहते हैं कि यार एक instructor होगा और वो generally digital skills एक set of students को सिखाएगा और the idea is to upskill them to be able to make them job worthy. job worthy ना से उनकी बढ़ा रहे हैं. अच्छा, जो दूसरे वाला मैंने बोला उसका तो स्केल का वैसे ही मसला है. So when I look at Pakistan, where कल I was speaking to someone on the podcast and they were mentioning कि almost 4 million adults are entering Pakistani essentially the workforce every year, and that's a crazy number. Like you cannot, इतना बड़ा सुनामी आ रहा है लोगों का कि आप उनको फिगर आउट ही नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. तो जब आपने अर्लियर बोला कि यार मैं सिर्फ और सिर्फ एजुकेशन एज अ मीन्स ऑफ सर्टिफिकेशन नहीं देख रहा, मैं एजुकेशन एज अ मीन्स ऑफ इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी देख रहा हूँ, मेरे लिए बड़ी पावरफुल और इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है. हाउ डू यू ट्रेन द इकोनॉमिक वेल्थ क्रिएटर ऑफ द फ्यूचर, राइट? तो उसमें आप पूरी की पूरी सप्लाई चेन को देखेंगे. आप देखेंगे कि यार मेरा बच्चा जो है वो स्टार्ट होता है एक फनल के एक सर्टन एरिया से, वो एंटर होता है, वहाँ से पड़ करके ऊपर जाता है और वो फिर इवेंचुअली हाई स्कूल के बाद वो सर्टन लेवल ऑफ स्किल्स को भी उठाता है. वो यूनिवर्सिटी, चाहे वो यूनिवर्सिटी है, चाहे वो डिप्लोमा है, चाहे वो जो भी है.
बिल्कुल.
तो पहला क्वेश्चन तो मेरा ये आएगा कि वाई इज़ एवरीबडी हार्ड स्टक एंड हार्ड फोकस्ड ऑन हाई स्कूल जब स्केल की बात करते हैं? क्योंकि बूट कैंप्स तो आप साइड पे करते हैं, वो तो एक नीश मार्केट के लिए, एक बहुत स्पेसिफिक ऑडियंस के लिए है, वेरी एक्सपेंसिव उस तरह से. स्केल में आप कॉस्ट कम कर देते हैं, जब कॉस्ट कम करते हैं तो बहुत सारे लोग आ सकते हैं और रेडिकल चेंज आपको उधर से आ सकता है. अब इसमें अनदर रीज़न वाई कि मुझे आई फाइंड इट ऑड दैट हाई स्कूल इज़ द मेजर ड्राइवर. आई अंडरस्टैंड द लॉजिक जो जनरली मुझे दी जाती है कि यार दैट इज़ वेयर द मोस्ट अमाउंट ऑफ मनी इज़ बीइंग स्पेंट. दैट इज़ द ट्रांजिशनरी पीरियड. सो एवरीबडी वांट्स यार पहले जो भी हुआ हो इस पॉइंट पे आके किसी तरीके से अच्छे ग्रेड्स आ जाए, मेरे बच्चे का पूरा स्लेट वाइप क्लीन हो जाएगा.
बिल्कुल.
एंड थर्डली अगेन बकेट साइज बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है, और वहाँ पर क्योंकि वो बच्चे जो है ना वो सम वॉट एडल्टहुड की तरफ जा रहे हैं, तो इस वजह से वहाँ पर एक कन्विंसिंग आ जाती है बच्चों की, जो कि पेरेंट्स को कहते हैं, जिसकी वजह से काफ़ी लोगों को हमने ये भी देखा कि वो स्कूल रिप्लेसमेंट प्रोग्राम्स नहीं दे रहे, वो एकेडमी रिप्लेसमेंट प्रोग्राम दे रहे हैं, क्योंकि बच्चे की बार्गेनिंग पावर वहाँ स्ट्रॉन्गर है.
बिल्कुल.
कि यार मैं एकेडमी अपनी डिजिटल कर रहा हूँ और मैं सुबह का आपकी मर्जी के हिसाब से स्कूल जा रहा हूँ. अगर मैं कहता हूँ यार कस्टमर मेरा पेरेंट है, ट्रस्ट मेरा बिल्ड नहीं हुआ, अडॉप्शन मुझे हाई चाहिए है, तो मैं तो फिर शुरू करूँगा वापस जाकर, और मैं कहूँगा कि यार मैं ग्रेड 1 से शुरू करता हूँ.
बिल्कुल.
ठीक है, जहाँ पर मुझे पता है कि जहाँ पर KGSs ऑफ द वर्ल्ड एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, मेरे पास एक बहुत बड़ी यूटिलिटी है कि 1000, 2000, 2500 रुपये आप चार्ज कर रहे हैं. 2500 रुपये में मैं पाकिस्तान में कितने लोगों को नहीं कर सकता. मैं छोटी सी मिसाल देता हूँ. माई ड्राइवर केम इन द अदर डे, ही इज पेइंग 3000 रुपीज़ पर चाइल्ड टू अ प्राइवेट स्कूल.
ठीक है.
द प्राइवेट स्कूल इज़ बेसिकली अ रूम इन हिज कम्युनिटी, जहाँ पर कुछ टीचरों ने कुछ बना दिया, कुछ कर दिया. ठीक है, एक क्लास रूम में 10-12 बच्चे हैं और एक छोटा सा एक सॉर्ट ऑफ सिस्टम चल रहा है. वो उस दिन मेरे पास आया, उसने कहा भाई आप मुझे कोई बता सकते हैं, क्योंकि मेरे पास अब स्मार्टफोन भी है, इंटरनेट के ऊपर इंटरनेट भी है, तो मैं अपनी बच्ची को क्या कुछ करा सकता हूँ कि वो किसी तरीके से, लाइक ही इज़ थिंकिंग के एक एस्पिरेशनल वैल्यू होती है ना, इस थिंकिंग के यार मुजम्मिल भाई इज़ समवेयर इन द सोसाइटी एंड ही नोज व्हाट वन मस्ट लर्न टू रीच अ बेटर प्लेस. एंड सो
बिल्कुल
उसने कहा मुझे डिजिटल कोई प्रोडक्ट दे दे, ठीक है, जिससे मैं किसी तरीके से, मैं 3000 रुपये में मैं यहाँ पे ज़ाया कर रहा हूँ, मेरा एक कम्यूनल सेटिंग है, बहुत सारे लोगों की कम्यूनल सेटिंग है.
बिल्कुल.
मेरे बच्चा वहाँ जाता है यहाँ रहता है, ऑनेस्टली कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता. मैं उसको ये देख के किसी तरीके से उसको अपस्किल करा सकूँ, अपग्रेड करा सकूँ.
बिल्कुल.
वाई डिडंट पीपल बिगिन टू टारगेट अर्ली लर्निंग प्रोग्राम्स, जहाँ पर पेरेंट्स आर मच मोर ओपन टू टेक रिस्क्स. वाई डिडंट दे टारगेट, अच्छा पहला तो अर्ली वाला हो गया,
ठीक है.
और फिर वहाँ से फ़ायदा ये होता है कि जब बाद एक बच्चा आता है ना, तो वो बच्चे को फिर आप उसको ले जाते हो. स्कूल्स भी ये करते हैं, नया इंटरेस्टिंग स्कूल है तो वो कहते हैं यार आपने एक IB स्कूल का तस्करा किया और आपने कहा कि वो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता अपने आप को बढ़ा रहे हैं. आई नो लॉट ऑफ अदर स्कूल्स इन इस्लामाबाद जो कि एक इंटरेस्टिंग नई चीज़ लेकर आए, तो उन्होंने पहले प्राइमरी से स्टार्ट किया और आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो ऊपर ले जाते हैं, उनके पास सेम बच्चा है जिसको वो ऊपर तक ले जा सकते हैं. या फिर बियॉन्ड हाई स्कूल, वेयर आई एम लाइक यार हाई स्कूल में तो मुझे एक स्टैंडर्ड चीज़ मिल ही रही है, बट हाई स्कूल के बाद इज़ वेयर द रियल. आपको पता है पाकिस्तान में ऑन एवरेज हाई स्कूल 3 मिलियन बच्चा इनरोल होता है इन एनी सॉर्ट ऑफ पोस्ट हाई स्कूल प्रोग्राम, which includes 3 million.
आई थिंक बट आई थिंक अंडरग्रेड सिर्फ 1 मिलियन तक करता होगा.
अंडरग्रेड 1 मिलियन से भी कम करता है.
7-8 लाख
HEC का देखा था, नहीं सॉरी हाँ 1.2 मिलियन अंडरग्रेड कर रहा था, एंड दिस इंक्लूड्स एनी एंड एवरी HEC रिकग्नाइज्ड यूनिवर्सिटी.
सही है.
उसके बाद आपका डिप्लोमा है, एसोसिएट्स डिग्री है, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ है, और वो सारा का सारा 3 मिलियन रफली आपका बच्चा वो कर रहा है. इस 3 मिलियन में से ना ऑनेस्ट टू गॉड अगर मैं कहूँ कि यार मेडिकल लाइसेंस्ड प्रोग्राम्स निकाल दूँ, उसको आप नहीं कर सकते, तो मेरे पास बचता है रफली ऑनेस्टली 1.8-1.9 मिलियन. मेडिकल बहुत बच्चा कर रहा है, लॉयर्स बहुत सारा वो कर रहे हैं, और उसमें भी मैं अगर स्टेम वगैरह देखूँ तो मेरे पास तकरीबन बचता है 1 मिलियन हार्ड कोर बच्चा, जिसमें से एम्प्लॉयबिलिटी जो है ना वो लेस देन 15% की है.
आई एम श्योर. ठीक
है, और ये बच्चे 4-4 साल ज़ाया कर रहे हैं, ये बच्चे लाखों रुपया ज़ाया करते हैं इस होप में, इनके वालिदैन पर्टिकुलरली फ्रॉम द मिडिल एंड लोअर मिडिल इनकम बैकग्राउंड्स इस होप में करते हैं कि हमारा बच्चा अफसर बन जाएगा.
बिल्कुल.
ठीक है,
ये तो होता है.
तो वाई डिड एवरीबडी फोकस ऑन एरियाज जहाँ पर मतलब वो वाली बात है, मुझे समझ नहीं आ रही कि 50 कंपनियाँ एक प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व कर रही हैं, कोई भी एक प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व नहीं कर पा रही. एक उससे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम एग्जिस्ट करती है, बिगर मार्केट साइज़ है, बिगर अपॉर्चुनिटी. अच्छा 3 मिलियन जो बच्चा एनरोल हो रहा है, उससे बहुत ज़्यादा बच्चा हाई स्कूल के बाद ड्रॉप आउट होकर घर जा रहा है.
बिल्कुल.
ठीक है,
ये भी है.
आपको ये भी पता है कि यार मैं कह रहा हूँ कि मुझे लोगों को कन्विंस करना है कि मुझे हाई स्कूल का डिप्लोमा जो है ना वो डिजिटल कर लो. मुझे ये बात भी पता है कि मेरे पास एक बहुत बड़ी ऑडियंस बैठी है और कह रही है कि यार फ्रीलांसिंग मैं कर रहा हूँ, मुझे तो डिग्री की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है.
बिल्कुल नहीं है. वो
बच्चा भी बैठा हुआ है जिसको अपस्किलिंग की ज़रूरत है, लेकिन वो यूनिवर्सिटी नहीं जाना चाहता. तो I'm very curious.
Okay, why does the business model start from this place?
Yeah.
I can give you some insight on some of those things. You want to go first?
So, fun fact, I was also part of the initial IV team. I was behind the scenes helping Bilal and everybody else set it up too. And something that came up over there was that it's what was very interesting for all me at that time to find out was how capital intensive it is. When you talk about the early years, right? Number one, I feel personally, in my opinion, if you decide to go on a scale-oriented solution, one that's more tech inclined for the early years, in a way, it could be I don't want to say detrimental, but it might be a disservice to the child's upbringing as well, right? Like earlier, before the recording, we spoke about the social aspect of even homeschooling too, right? And at the early years, there's so many developmental challenges that a child faces that families also face, because for families, for new parents, they're also learning and they're experimenting with their kid. So schools by default have to end up providing, if at the very least, they have to provide a safe space, right? Number two, I feel that what's also a challenge is that we don't have the right expertise also for the early childhood, right? Like Shahzad Roy, for example, in his one of his videos on Facebook I saw, actually said is that you won't go to a doctor who is actually a mechanic, and you're not going to go to a lawyer who's actually a doctor. So why are you sending your child to a school with a teacher that doesn't have the right qualifications to actually teach your child, right? That just goes to show is that कि आप कोई भी तबका ले ले, आप कोई भी background ले ले, आप कोई भी school ले ले, the importance of teacher training and also just fundamental knowledge and competencies are so high is that by default, schools on their own, before we even think about talking about this problem at scale, schools should probably just look themselves in the mirror and ask, yeah, how can you do this better, right? So that the high school problem is not the problem to be solving. It's also where the funnel starts. You know, but that's my take on it.
So there are, so the एक point तूने बोला था, the few points are exactly second. एक तो expertise नहीं है. दुनिया में ना एड टेक में काफ़ी ज़्यादा काम प्राइमरी लेवल्स पे हो रहा है. माई चाइल्ड हु गोज़ टू IB, शी यूजेस 3 tools. वो सारे आर मच बेटर दैन एनीथिंग इन पाकिस्तान वीव हैड, बट देर अर्ली लर्निंग के हैं. उसमें IXL एक आता है, उसमें आई डोंट रिमेंबर द अदर वंस नेम, आई हैव सीन इट एंड शी लव्स इट. Seesaw is just for sharing the information, but they're very tech friendly, and the kids use iPads in class once in a while, but they cannot do it every day. The reason why, I can give you the reasons why not and the reasons why. The reasons why not, one of them is this. Second is you want interaction. So like he said, the startup cost is too much. Like जितना पैसा मुझे, अगर हमने कहना कि the amount of money we needed to raise to do Alt Academy digitally, and we can, with this money we can easily serve 10 to 20,000 students easily. That's the same amount of capital is been spent more so in the IB school, जिसको भी 4 साल हुए हैं और अभी 200 बच्चा है वहाँ. It's probably just breaking even now. The amount of investment and the slow pace needed, and then secondly, expertise से बात होगी. एक और एरिया है कि आपने नोटिस किया होगा, most parents when they, like even when you get older and your child gets older, like my child is now 9, I'm not as worried about her daily activities as I was when she was 1 or 2. With the early years and nurturing years, हम उसकी हर चीज़ देखते थे. खा क्या रही है, पी क्या रही है, उठ कब रही है, सो कब रही है. 9 साल की होगी, she'll go play tennis on her own, she'll come back, we know what she's eaten and all that. We're okay with that. We're not monitoring her like a you know, helicopter parent कह लो आप. तो जब नई चीज़ें आती है ना, at most parents are very averse to trying anything new at the earliest years. Like when we actually told, I'm so confident about IB and this program that मैंने अपनी बच्ची को, I went to KGS, like the biggest brand name school in Karachi. I could have gotten in line to get my kid there. I had the money, resources to go to Karachi American school also. I didn't bother any of those schools. When my friend and his wife, and both are educationists, they said, हम IB में ये plan है, ये बनाएंगे. मैंने कहा, sign me up. My daughter, whatever money I have, I'll give you that, and I'll put my daughter in here also, because I believe in that. But it's a slow process. It can be a tech startup. That's the problem. Now, एक तो reason हो गया, why doesn't early happen? Now, why does high school happen so easily? Because people are resistant to change. Like, मैं खुद क्यों कर रहा हूँ? Because this is the only real area of expertise I have. If I had early years, I would do that. If I had post A-levels, I would do that. But why do people only do this? Because in this age group is where you start becoming a lecturer. A 9th grade class, 10th grade class is not engaging. It's a lecture model. Lecture models are the easiest to digitize. So when even education became digitized internationally, सबसे पहले MIT ने किया था अपनी यूनिवर्सिटी का courseware, open courseware. That was a lecture recorded on video. That's the easiest thing. We go for the easiest. So every tech startup is going for the easiest solution. Yeah, record a lecture, बैठ के और वो बन जाएगा आपका. That's not how learning happens, but because that's all we know, we did that. Now, why doesn't innovation happen at the university level? I actually went to HEC. I met, I think, the top 2nd or 3rd person. यार हमें यूनिवर्सिटी खोलनी है. The long list of what requires, हम educationist हैं. We couldn't cover that. But I know, I can't even name the people who have licenses to open universities. They were like, how are you getting a license? So हमारे And you cannot open a university unless government gives you a license. It is not possible. आपको एकड़ों की ज़मीन चाहिए. Like ज़मीन is the only thing you need. ज़मीन and पैसे चाहिए and that's it. और PhDs चाहिए. And Pakistan में, I mean, I heard from somebody else also, but I also know this from first hand. The way PhDs are coming out of Pakistan are just copy pasting on international research and they get a thappa and a PhD बन चुके हैं. They don't learn how to teach. So innovation का फ़ायदा क्या है? Look, अगर मैं innovate करूँगा भी तो डिग्री तो वही यूनिवर्सिटी दे रही ना. ज़ाबिस देगा या IBA देगा, वो देगा. प्रॉब्लम ये है कि आप बोलो यार चलो हम उनके पढ़ाई बेहतर कर देते हैं. If the पढ़ाई is all dependent on the person making the course, tomorrow that changes, what do you know? The reason why high school gets done is because it's standardized. The नुकसान of this also is the fact that these are high stake standardized exams. Either हमारे इंटर मेट्रिक के होते हैं जो हर डिफरेंट बोर्ड के 4-5 तो बोर्ड है हमारे लोकल, उनके एक ही एग्जाम आता है ना. यू कैन नो एग्जैक्टली क्या आने वाला है इसमें. कैम्ब्रिज का भी यही है. तो इट्स एन ईजियर प्रॉब्लम टू सॉल्व फॉर मोस्ट पीपल. दैट्स व्हाई दे गेट इनटू दिस. The skills problem is also the problem that they're trying to solve for, but intentions are right. But I don't know anybody who actually did the skills level work at a mass scale before tech came along. Skills were always there before tech came along. So the real persons should have who needed to start that program would have been people who are working in that industry space in the first place. Because previous to tech also we could have had institutes. We know there were some, but it was not very adopted. लोग नहीं कर रहे थे because hard skill. अभी भी if you really want to learn a skill, if I want to learn a skill, I don't trust any Pakistani giving me that skill lesson. I'll spend the money or I'll go to YouTube and do it online from international sources because skills are universal. They can learn from anywhere. So हमारे यहाँ वहाँ फंस जाते हैं. Anybody now saying yeah we need a Pakistani based platform to teach skills, might as well take another international platform, dub it in Urdu and give that. Why do recreate the wheel? और ये जो high schools का, I want this to be this, like I really feel that this should be out of business. The ideal situation would be all that we're doing is done for free so that people start realizing यार अब क्या कर सकते हैं हम. Because and then to answer the question why are people doing this, because it's easy. Like why am I doing it different, but why are people doing it?
But I feel like there's also a very important connection to draw over here. Let's assume that all of the players out there are doing I'm not going to assume, I know that they're doing a great job. Everybody is doing a great job. Everybody's trying to solve the problem the best way they can with the limited resources.
Doing a great job.
Well, like
you're very nice and Gen Z-ish.
Yeah, but I'm trying to be inclusive. Like there's a lot of abundance. Let's just say that. Abundance hai. Now, if we are all able to solve the job well, right, and everybody has their couple of thousand kids that they're serving, they fingers crossed solve the problem of future of work. It's a funnel. It's cyclical. Number one, we also have to acknowledge, right? Not everybody can become a leader, right? The same way, not everybody can become a doctor, not everybody can become a lawyer, not everybody can become a chemist, not everybody can become a podcaster. Everybody has their own skill sets, has their own innate predispositions towards particular career paths. What we should be hoping for is that from the students that come out from this high school funnel, go and do a B.Ed and then an M.Ed and then an M.Phil and then a PhD and then start coming back into the system. And that's exactly why credit does go to places like Doorbeen. Right? I don't know if you've heard about Doorbeen, but it is a program that I forgot. I think Salma Aftab is her name. She's Shahzad Roy's wife. She started off a university that is giving women a B.Ed from the University of Helsinki in collaboration with Karachi University. They got a whole campus in Federal B area in Karachi. They've renovated it. They've made it cleaner, safer as well. And right after graduating, they also give employment to these women. Now, it's going to take time, but that's also, again, अगर हम NICs और Catalyst Labs और इतने सारे incubation centers बना सकते, that also has to come. But that's going to come once that high school problem is solved, and then you have people coming back to serve the bottom of the funnel as well, or the top of the funnel, whichever way. But it's circular, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
We have to see how the dots end up connecting.
Achha, obviously, a lot of the conversation that we've previously been having was focused on what you guys are doing, and I want कि आप बिल्कुल ही उसको साइड पे कर दें. And I really want to go into sort of brainstorming your thoughts on the future of work, the future of education, the future of learning. उस स्पेस में आप जाएं. आपने बड़ी अभी इंटरेस्टिंग बात बोली. आपने कहा कि everybody doesn't become the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? People tend to be like, people have everybody has unique experiences, and everybody has certain biological and social cues through which they can maximize their potential.
Yeah.
पाकिस्तान में unfortunately more often than not, beyond the कि education system के अंदर education हो कैसी रही है, learning हो कैसी रही है, even जो निज़ाम है वो ऐसा है कि आपने पहले तो कहा डॉक्टर और इंजीनियर, फिर आपने कहा डॉक्टर इंजीनियर और टेलीकॉम इंजीनियर, फिर आपने कहा डॉक्टर इंजीनियर टेलीकॉम इंजीनियर और BBA, और दरमियान में CA रैंडम वाइल्ड कार्ड एंट्री थी. और विद इन दीज एरियाज ऑफ स्टडी एज वेल, मैं कंप्यूटर साइंस मैंने पाकिस्तान से किया, आपने बाहर से किया. दोनों में डिफरेंस बता देता हूँ. अब ये कंप्यूटर साइंस बाहर से किया ना, तो आपने इसमें दरमियान में माइनर एक मिडल ईस्टर्न स्टडीज़ भी फेंक दिया, और एक और भी आई थिंक कोई आपने दरमियान में केमिस्ट्री भी कर दी. और उसके अलावा आपका मूड था कि यार मैंने XYZ उठाना है, तो आपको उठाने दे रहे थे.
बिल्कुल.
मैंने यहाँ पे किया तो मेरे पास टोटल लिस्टेड जो 32 कोर्सेज थे आई बिलीव, 32 में से 28 या 26 या 28 कोर्सेज डिफाइंड थे. 4 इलेक्टिव्स थे, जो इलेक्टिव्स विद इन द मेजर ऑफ माई स्टडी एरिया थे कि यार तुमने जो है ना, अगर इलेक्टिव लेना है तो तुमने वेब डेवलपमेंट या AI या इसमें लेना है. तो इट्स नॉट लाइक कि मैं बहुत एक्सप्लोरेटिव हो रहा था. ठीक है,
मुझे चॉइस भी नहीं दी था.
चॉइस भी नहीं दी थी. ह्यूमैनिटीज़ अगर उन्होंने दिया, उन्होंने कहा तुम मार्केटिंग पढ़ो और मैनेजमेंट पढ़ो और बस इस तरह की बेसिक चीज़ें पढ़ लो और एक लैंग्वेज पढ़ लो, इस्लामियात और फ्रेंच टाइप की कोई इस तरह की. तो मसला मुझे ये नज़र आता है हमारे एजुकेशन के निज़ाम के अंदर, पाकिस्तान में भी, ग्लोबली भी है, और आप उसमें डिफरेंट मॉडल्स भी देख रहे हैं डिफरेंट कंट्रीज़ के चेंज होते आ रहे हैं. दिस इज़ नॉट जस्ट एन एजुकेशन प्रॉब्लम, जो मैंने पहले भी इस चीज़ का तस्करा किया कि अब दुनिया बड़ी बदलने लगी है, और जिसमें जहाँ पर हम स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन के ऊपर अपनी एफिशिएंसी ढूंढ रहे थे, अब हम पर्सनलाइजेशन के ऊपर ढूंढ रहे हैं. चाहे वो सोशल मीडिया है, चाहे वो कंटेंट है, चाहे वो एनीथिंग दैट इज़ enabled by AI essentially is basically what it's doing is it's tailoring your experience to your requirements, right? That's the beauty of, क्योंकि पहले भी ह्यूमन काइंड नहीं कर सकती थी, तो ह्यूमन काइंड स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन के ऊपर इकोनॉमी ऑफ स्केल डील कर रही थी. विद मशीन लर्निंग नाउ यू आर सेइंग कि यार ठीक है, मेरे पास एक ब्रेन लगा हुआ है और वो ब्रेन जो है वो हर किसी को ऑप्टिमाइज़ करके देता है. व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट एजुकेशन, हाउ डू यू थिंक के यू नो थिंग्स लाइक AI एंड रियली बेस्ड ऑन कि आपने कहा कि हर बंदा जो है वो अपनी चीज़ बनेगा, तो हाउ डू यू पर्सनलाइज एजुकेशन, नॉट टुडे मे बी, बट 10 years from now, what is the vision कि एक ऐसा निज़ाम होगा which works for the child? और इसमें मैं 2 मिनट लगा के मैं थोड़ा सा और कॉन्टेक्स्ट अगर दे सकूँ, जो मैंने पहले भी दिया, बट फॉर द सेक ऑफ द ऑडियंस मैं अगर दे सकूँ कि when I was looking at my child, I saw that because he had a personalized nanny, he was able to learn things faster. And so मेरे दिमाग कॉन्स्टेंटली आजकल ये चल रहा है कि यार वो जब जाता है और जाकर स्कूल में घुसेगा, तो स्कूल एक एवरेज पे चलाएगा. स्कूल ने कम बच्चों को भी उस एवरेज पे लेकर आना है और आगे वाले बच्चों को भी रोकना है कि यार एवरेज पे रहो, ज़्यादा छलांगे ना लगाओ. बिल्कुल. जिस पे कम वाले बच्चे का सबसे ज़्यादा फ़ायदा है, एवरेज बच्चे के लिए वॉट एवर है, और अच्छे बच्चे के लिए सबसे ज़्यादा नुकसान है. राइट. वेयर एज और ये आर्बिट्रेरी है बाय द वे. कभी कभार ऐसा होता है कि स्कूल्स कहते हैं कि यार हमारे पास अच्छे बच्चे, ये क्लासरूम में एक्चुअली बच्चे कितने हैं उस पर डिपेंड करता है. अगर थोड़े अच्छे बच्चे ज़्यादा आ गए तो जो
एवरीबडी
नहीं, उनको पुश करते हैं, लेकिन उसमें से कुछ एवरेज बच्चे ऊपर चले जाते हैं,
कुछ ड्रॉप आउट हो जाते हैं,
कुछ जो बच्चे हैं ना वो फेल कर जाते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि उनको डेडिकेटेड वो नहीं मिल रही जो कि उनको चाहिए. वो स्पीड अप करके टीचर आगे जा रही है अपने अच्छे बच्चों की खातिर. एंड एज यू प्रोग्रेस थ्रू मिडिल एंड हाई स्कूल, you see this happening more often than not, where the above average are given all the attention.
Yeah.
And the average are ostracized and told that average and below average are told that you guys are failures, you are idiots. You God alone knows what happened, but you know you are the reject of the society.
Yeah.
What AI can do is both for children who are smarter, can give them faster, much more nuanced learning experience dedicated to their areas of interest. For children who are below average, can give them dedicated learning experience where they don't feel like, yeah, now everybody's waiting, so I'm not even going to ask a question because it's going to be dumb, they're going to laugh at me, and now everybody's like, ugh, तुम्हारी वजह से हम स्लो जा रहे हैं.
बिल्कुल.
You know, there's that social
there
cue.
There is also that. Absolutely.
And so how do you imagine a world of education 10 years from now, beyond the HEC problems and the government regulations, where maybe it's education for all, tailored to every individual?
So there are 2 different aspects. I mean, I think one thing gets confused is people confuse the definitions of learning and education. Education is just a design system of what we predict how kids should learn. Learning is natural. You don't teach a child to learn. He is born with that innate skill, he or she. वो खुद ही सीख रहे होते हैं. And I agree this is a big role for AI to play here. And AI plays that role when you mention that. I agree here, especially when I see my daughter interacting with Siri. It's in the music level only, but I know it can go into so many more places. So when a child is in a discovery phase, AI can become more like a more personalized Google of sorts. But that's only one aspect of learning. That's part of learning. That's the part that they're interested in. And I wish that kids are more encouraged in areas that they're interested in to learn. I get that. But there's also at the same time learning of skills that not everybody's interested in, but we all know that they need also. Like we can predict some like it's like things that maybe a division and multiplication is something that kid might never really like. But we also know that for quick math on the go, it's a good tool to have. What you raised a problem about the levels of the child of this classroom, uska ek solution hai, we don't even need tech for that. That's called mastery based learning. We apply that to almost everything else in life except for the subjects you study in a school. You're doing a podcast, we are all recording it. The quality of the sound and the system was not the same. That is not now the same as it was the first day. It has improved. You've mastered the art. And now you can teach it to somebody else, and that's what we do with everything in life. We do something till we master it. Riding a bicycle, you don't put your child on a bicycle, and I'm sure when your child grows up, you will put them on a bicycle, and they'll cycle and say, नहीं यार 3 दिन cycle किया है, आप 3 दफा गिरी हो, आपका grade B आया है, अब छोड़ दो, let's go to now playing tennis. You will ensure that cycle चल जाएगी और वो चलाता रहेगा. They've mastered cycling, and then you'll take them somewhere else. We don't grade things in life, but we grade everything in a school. The problem is there. Now, where does that come in? Where does tech come in there? One of the things the reason why even this problem of lectures help, because what we can truly start doing is individualized learning. It can go from being सबको एक साथ पढ़ाया, सबको एक साथ सवाल दिए, सबको एक साथ टेस्ट किया. That's the biggest problem right now. Let's say there are 2 problems, and then I agree. One is the kids are not learning things that are interested in, and the stuff that they're also learning, they're learning it the wrong way. Now, we can solve for both. The interest part is where we have higher engaging content. Studios with larger budgets who can actually create amazing. I mean, if you give Disney Plus all the money in the world, they already have all the money in the world. I would trust them to build much more engaging content for my child than anybody else. Banao wo baith ke. Then how does the kid in the classroom do? That's where the schools and the teachers have to change. It is no longer कि सब एक चीज़ देखेंगे as a cinema में, सबके पास Netflix की तरह के devices होनी चाहिए और whatever else individual learning होनी चाहिए. And one kid might go down to the 5th grade math level while the other is still at the 3rd grade math level, and that's fine. They can be in the classroom together. And we have to keep pushing everybody to the same level. If the 5th grade has done it, he should be able to do anything else with that time, learn something else. So mastery-based learning is the biggest problem. We're not following that. We lay the weakest foundations for the best of the best in the class are going to go forward and going to be successful in their schooling lives. But जो average बच्चा होता है, अगर उसकी for example, if you just barely made through multiplication division, how are you ever going to ace indices in grade 7 math? और बहुत बच्चे मुझे मिलते लाइफ में, सर हमारे बच्चे की मैथ खराब हो गई थी क्लास 8th में. क्यों खराब हुई थी? It was not that he was bad at it, he or she was not given enough time to master something. So when I see the future of education, first of all, some of the most engaging content will be made by just a very few of the world. You will only have a very few MK based D's. I mean, I just named him, he's a reviewer, but for example, that you got the best of the best making content.
Like Ali Abdal.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then what's happening inside the classroom with your child, my child, anybody else's child, even with with any maid or any other, you could say, learning aid with them or tutor, their job is to just push that child. Motivation, and just keep pushing at it till they master something. So I really feel the future of education is going to mimic the history of how people learned. When they had a personal tutor, he was responsible for both introducing them to amazing ideas. It was all about entertainment. At that time, they would be introduced to Socrates, Plato, philosophy ho gayi, history ho gayi. A lot learned from that. And they were there to push the curiosity of the one individual learner they had, and then motivate them also, and then also help them master whatever they had no exams, they had no okay B aaya, let's move on to the next. So they had to sit with it, make sure they got through this and then to the next level. And I think that's where the future lies. Yes, hoga kya कि those who are motivated self-learners will learn at a much lower cost. They learn for free. And those that need some motivation, they'll have to spend some more money in more like life or personal coaches. Now, at a scale, schools would have teachers who are literally that. They will no longer be the imparters of knowledge. They will be the facilitators and the mentors in a group setting. And those who are lucky enough to have one-on-one life coaches, that's exactly what they'll have. Like your child or somebody else will get, humne nanny bola, humne aid bola, learning aid. They're all literally that. They're one-on-one coaches. So and it'll all work out based on economics. But curiosity will be developed and entertained by the best of the best production houses. In fact, you don't even need that anymore. I think Unreal Engine and all these new places, you can create that. I'm seeing the future right now. I'm just waiting for it to happen.
हर एक चीज़ इतनी democratize हो गई है ना, right? Like even this will end up being in that format. But sorry, continue.
No worries. So individualized learning plans would be what everybody's on. Basically, everybody will have their own path, and they will learn correctly because you still want to go and hang out with people. Right. Schools will become hangout spots. Like instead of malls, you want to hang out in common rooms in schools.
Yeah,
makes sense. मुझे एक बात बताएं.
Can I add in one point over here?
Yeah, go for it.
I feel like see the future of education though, like we also have to be aware of the fact is that it's only as good as those that are implementing it today, right? There has to be this sense of awareness also that comes in. Ivy school, for example, initial days mein and still to this day following the inquiry-based model, right? Similar to pre-recording, we were talking about the likes of Aristotle, Da Vinci, all of them, right? उस्ताद ने अपने बच्चों को बस गाइड करते हुए आगे बढ़ा दिया. That's how the Ivy schools format was and still is. Parents also, both of you as parents are more lucky to actually see that happening in real life. So you kind of are curious to see, where's the little one going? Which direction are they going in? And then you know at what point you introduce them to technology to kind of put the cherry on top. Teachers, exactly as Bilal pointed out, is my opinion too, is that teachers need to, or their role will become that of a facilitator. But once they become that of a facilitator, not just the teacher, but the entire institution also needs to start understanding the marriage between their involvement and technology. It's a double-edged sword in a way, but it's also a very slippery slope. You introduce it too early, could really change the game. You introduce it too late, could change the game as well. But they have to start going hand in hand. There has to be an acceptance also. That's what I think.
I think also in the first world, I think one of the biggest hits for school will be universal basic income. I think we're very close to that. I don't think people need to work 40 hours a week. Because we work 40 hours a week is the reason why we have schools, honestly. You or your wife and you work, that's why your child might have to have somebody taking care of that. Either it's school, मेरी बेटी भी school जाती है because till 4:30, me and my wife can work.
Yeah.
What if we don't need to work 40 hours? What if we end up working only need to work 15 hours? Might not be a reality in Pakistan very soon, but in the first world, I think 10 years will be there will not be enough work we needed.
Yeah.
Technology will outsource most of the work. So, अब अगर बंदा 10 घंटे काम करेगा तो he'll have the time to be the school for their child. So the parent starts being that tutor for their child who just introduces them to all these, and they will
content platforms and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think again, school, the way that I imagine it is that schools as a आपने बड़ा अच्छा बोला था learning and education में फ़र्क है कि schools as a playground for education will stop because learning and education will become sort of synonymous with each other and they can and students will begin to self-learn through the aid of their parents or the aid of digital
because
technologies.
Learning I'm sorry to cut you, just one more clarification on that point. Education is a set of like rules you make to induce learning.
Yeah.
But learning is very automatic.
Yeah.
Education has to become fluid. It's not. It's very stuck to what we now call the factory model.
Yeah, and I think again, I try to look at everything in a TikTok model, right? So if TikTok can take an X amount of your time through content, it can do the same for any industry, in my opinion. Any digital enabled industry can utilize the TikTok model. Except कि वही वाली बात है, and the reason why I say that is not because for most people they'll be like अच्छा content integrate करते हैं हर चीज़ में. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is कि TikTok, मैंने जो लोग regularly podcast सुनते हैं, what it's done is it's truly democratized. जो आपने बोला ना word use किया, by and large even content platforms or a lot of other industries के अंदर जब products आई हैं हमारी west से, तो it has not democratized access to most of our people, which includes Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tools like Wikipedia, like Khan Academy, like a lot of these other tools have not been able to reach down to the masses because the design language that was used, जो कि इस thought से design थी कि western styled educated audience किस तरह से उसको use करेगी.
Yeah, I think one more thing was the fact that it's a video first.
Yeah.
बाकी सब रीडिंग फर्स्ट है एक्चुअली.
हाँ, बट अगर मैं इसको आपको थोड़ा फ्लिप करता हूँ, इंस्टाग्राम बहुत कोशिश कर रहा है वीडियो फर्स्ट,
वो बाद में आना, इट्स टू लेट नाउ फॉर इट.
आई डोंट थिंक इट्स टू लेट. मैं फिर से रिपीट कर देता हूँ क्योंकि मैंने परसों वाली पॉडकास्ट से भी ये किया हुआ है. देखिए यूज़र एक्सपीरियंस मैं क्विक समरी देता हूँ आपको. यूज़र एक्सपीरियंस क्या है टिकटॉक इंस्टाग्राम के ऊपर. व्हेन यू एंटर इंस्टाग्राम यू हैव टू साइन अप. यू कैन नॉट डू एनीथिंग बिफोर साइनिंग अप. व्हेन यू गो ऑन टिकटॉक द मिनट यू ओपन द ऐप कंटेंट इज देयर. देन इट आस्क्स यू 10 minutes later कि यार बाय द वे डू यू वांट टू साइन अप. इट हैज लॉक्ड सर्टेन फीचर्स फॉर यू टू साइन अप. नाउ इंस्टाग्राम के ऊपर व्हेन यू साइन अप इट इज टेलिंग यू यूजर नेम डालो नहीं डालोगे तो मैं कुछ नहीं पढ़ सकता. टिकटॉक के ऊपर आप जाएं और जाके आज कमेंट सेक्शन खोलें, आधे यूजर्स लिखा है यूजर 952222. क्यों? क्योंकि वो ऑटो जनरेटर दे रहा है आपको यूजर नेम का. वो हर चीज का ऑटो जनरेटर दे रहा है फॉर यू टू गेट इन
as soon as possible.
And over time it is teaching you how to utilize that product. It is a content platform, sure, but how do you onboard consumers in a way that they will be your customer not today but 6 months from now? And a lot of people are not trying to do that. They're saying I want to try look for a market that is a customer today, and if that person is not a customer I'm going to bitch about the fact that यार क्या चुत्तू audience है कि उनको मेरी चीज़ नहीं आती. यार the genius will be कि how do you build that demand? The Chinese have mastered the ability for demand creation. They have done Chinese. आप मुझे बताएं, आप पाकिस्तान में बड़े हुए, आप पाकिस्तान में बड़े हुए, हमने कभी सोचा था कि वीडियो गेम्स के ऊपर पाकिस्तानी पैसा लगाएगा? यार 70 रुपए की सीडी के ऊपर दोस्त कहता था 70 की क्यों खरीदूं भाई, तेरे पास डाउनलोड पड़ी है, तू मुझे कॉपी करके दे दे. आज पबजी मिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स आपके मुल्क से बाहर लेकर जाता है.
बिल्कुल.
आज फ्री फायर 1 करोड़ 20 लाख रुपए का टीवीसी बना के टीवी पे चलाता है. कभी कोई अमेरिकन कर सका था? कोई यूबीसॉफ्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड कर सका था? नहीं, चाइनीज कर गया.
That's true.
Right?
That is
there
true.
is a learning there. There is a psychological learning there. If you want to do something really truly disruptive in this country and you really want to radically redesign, because मेरे लिए ना the reason why I feel very strongly about it, I know आप लोग कहते होंगे यार ये पागल का बच्चा इसको पता है एजुकेशन को सबसे कम व्यू आता है, ये बारहा एजुकेशन के लोगों को बुलाता है और उनसे जाके बैठ के बात करने की कोशिश करता है. क्या इसका प्रॉब्लम है? मेरा प्रॉब्लम ये है कि पॉडकास्टिंग के पीछे पूरी फिलोसफी जो थी ना मेरी, वो ये थी कि यार हाउ डू यू इनेबल इंडिविजुअल्स to be able to do better in one way or the other. So theoretically,
by the way, you're a school. A podcast is a school.
Exactly, right?
You decide what people learn from there.
So what I'm trying to figure out is कि how do you take this model and put it in a lot of other areas? So मैं एक certain audience को, university की audience को free of cost case studies देता हूँ. MBA की क्लास की तरह हर दिन की एक case study देता हूँ कि यार आपने ये किस तरह किया और आपने ये किस तरह किया और आपने ये किस तरह किया.
Yeah.
But if this can generate a certain X amount of audience, first of all, how do you take that audience of 15,000 or 20,000 viewers an episode and take it down to 500,000 because the real impact is right there.
Yeah.
But also how do you take that model and start plugging it in every other which way, जिसमें आप कहते हो कि यार ठीक है मैं हाई स्कूल को भी ये करता हूँ, मैं स्किल्स को भी करता हूँ. एंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंटली अगर मैं आपसे एक सवाल पूछूँ इसके अंदर, आई डोंट नो मैं अपनी रैंट के अंदर सवाल पे स्टार्ट हुआ था या नहीं हुआ था.
It's okay.
आई अपोलोजाइज, आप लोग देख लीजिएगा. पर सवाल इससे मेरा ये आया कि आप लोग ग्रेजुएट के यूनिवर्सिटी से आप लोगों ने आपने बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग बोला कि यार हमें ना जो लोग ढूंढने, जो वर्किंग के लिए लोग चाहिए वो ऐसे चाहिए होते हैं कि फ्री थिंकर्स एंड दिस एंड दैट. आपने भी काम किया होगा, मैंने भी काम किया है. 10 में से 1 या 2 ऐसा होता है, नहीं 50 में से 1 या 2 ऐसा होता है. आप फ्री थिंकर आइडियोलॉजी रखते हो ना जब, और 48 को आप वो फ्री थिंकिंग देते हो तो वो कहता है कि यार आज तो लग गई है लॉटरी, अब तो इसको मैं इतना चूना लगाऊंगा कि ये रोएगा, जब तक ये रोएगा नहीं ना तो मैं चूना लगाता रहूँगा. सिमिलरली आप जो है जब जाते हो जाके इस मतलब हमारे मुल्क के अंदर एथिक का भी प्रॉब्लम है. हमारे मुल्क के अंदर बहुत सारे और प्रॉब्लम. आप कहते हो स्किल सीख गया, स्किल सीखने के बाद वो बच्चा जो है वो उसको पता ही नहीं है कि मैंने
सिटीजनशिप का प्रॉब्लम है.
हाँ, कि मैंने टाइमली डिलीवर किस तरह करना है, मैंने कम्युनिकेट किस तरह करना है. मेरी वो उसको लगता है कि यार मैं ये जो चूना लगा रहा हूँ ना इसको इस वक्त, इसको मैंने बड़ा पैसा बना लिया. उसको कॉन्सेप्ट ही नहीं है कि लॉन्ग टर्म रिलेशन को क्या सीन है. अगला जो है वो आपके साथ जब इंटर्नी काम करने आया था ना तो उसको इतनी कॉन्सेप्ट था कि यार मैं इस बंदे के साथ लर्न कर कहाँ जा रहा हूँ.
Completely.
And so
that, by the way, that if you remember, there was a time, there's a phrase called "Yeah, he's an educated man." That was what it meant. Civilized and has good citizenship. Not के degree क्या थी.
Degree क्या थी.
Sadly, what has happened is that the biggest problem, and I wanted to add this somewhere. I'm sorry, I don't know. You were also finishing your thought.
No, go for it.
Is that के I think one of the biggest changes we'll have is when biggest companies in Pakistan say we do not need university degrees, because I think the change is going to come from there. Because that's what's driving everybody to forget all the ethics to get that grade, because नौकरी मिलेगी उससे. अगर कल एंग्रो बोलता है कि we will no longer need any degree as long as you can prove either these characteristics, if they could figure. By the way, the problem is testing also.
if we cannot, अब आप मेरे सवाल में आप खुद आ गए तो मैं आपसे पूछना ही चाह रहा था. मैं आपसे कहता यार आप एक एक्सपर्ट हैं इस एरिया के अंदर. मैं आपसे कहता हूँ forget about the A levels that you're doing great, ज़बरदस्त. मैं आपसे पूछता हूँ कि यार मुझे एक प्रोडक्ट डिज़ाइन करनी है जिसमें मुझे बहुत सारे, इस मुल्क में जॉबलेस लोग बहुत ज़्यादा हैं, हमें ये बात पता है. इस लोग में जॉब्स भी बहुत ज़्यादा हैं जो कि फुलफिल नहीं हो पा रही, ठीक है। मैं थ्रू एजुकेशन एंड थ्रू डिजिटल इंटरवेंशन कोई प्रोडक्ट बनाना चाहता हूँ जिसके थ्रू मैं समहाउ जॉबलेस को उठाऊँ और मैं जॉब्स पे डाल दूँ, और दरमियान में मैं सिर्फ उनको हार्ड स्किल ना दूँ, मैं उसको दरमियान में एक वेल राउंडेड सिटीजन बनाकर निकालूँ. हाउ वुड यू डिज़ाइन दैट प्रोडक्ट?
So the product which you're asking about is something that is not just, it can't start, you cannot make that change at the 19 or 20 year old boy. It has to come a little.
I'm telling you कि सर अभी जो आपके पास है ना 19-20 year old वो यार है.
Okay.
ठीक है. अब आपने, और इसका मैं इसमें ये ऐड करता हूँ कि I was researching on universities globally and actually the history of university कि why मुझे मेरे लिए बड़ा सवाल है कि यार 4 साल में क्यों होता है? 1 साल में भी हो सकता है,
बिल्कुल
2 साल में भी हो सकता है. बच्चे यूनिवर्सिटी नहीं जा रहे, 6 महीने का कोर्स का 3 महीने का कोर्स करके फ्रीलांसिंग कर रहे हैं, तो लेबर तो कर रहे हैं.
बिल्कुल.
एक तो वो है ना कि मैं कहता हूँ यूनिवर्सिटी इज एन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ रिसर्च एंड सो वहाँ के लिए आपको टाइम लगाना है. तो आप बट कितना बच्चा PhD कर रहा है? मोस्ट पीपल आर डूइंग फॉर द सेक ऑफ जॉब. तो पता ये लगा कि जी इंग्लैंड में 3 साल या यूरोप में 3 साल एंड अमेरिकन सिस्टम में 4 साल है. अमेरिका में 2 साल और यूरोप में 1 साल फाउंडेशन ईयर है, जिसमें उन्होंने ये कहा कि यार हर किस्म का स्पोरेडिक बच्चा आ रहा है, तो पहले तो उसको हम एक स्टैंडर्डाइज करेंगे और उसके बाद में सुपरवाइज लर्निंग करेंगे. सो एक्चुअली स्पेशलाइज लर्निंग करेंगे. एक्चुअली यूनिवर्सिटीज़, अगर आपको याद हो, 2 साल का प्रोग्राम होता था, ठीक है.
आई थिंक अमेरिका इज ऑल्सो कॉल्ड एसोसिएट प्रोग्राम.
एक्चुअल में जो यूनिवर्सिटी का जो कंटेंट है ना वो 2 साल, वो आखिरी 2 साल है. आपको जो इंट्रोडक्शन के कोर्सेज दिए जा रहे हैं, जो ये दिए जा रहा है वो दिया जा रहा है.
I've been through that. I know exactly. Like you said 28 courses for computer science. I only had like what 15. बाकी सब रैंडम मजे चीज़ें.
हाँ. सो एसेंशियली वो कर ये रहे हैं कि वो आपको बेंचमार्किंग कर रहे हैं कि पहले 2 साल उन्होंने कहा कि यार हम आपको एक स्टेप पे लाइक, यार आप पाकिस्तानी सिस्टम से गए हुए थे,
जी,
ठीक है, हम भी पाकिस्तानी सिस्टम तो बाहर से पढ़े
पहले सबको.
फाउंडेशन ईयर्स की वजह से ना मोस्टली आप एक पॉइंट पे लाके खड़ा कर देते हैं. तो मैं ये आपको ये ऑलरेडी मैं आपके हाथ बांध रहा हूँ और कह रहा हूँ कि 18-19 के बाद के बच्चा जो आ रहा है वो आ रहा है.
So I think I'll retract my answer, because what I just thinking while you were changing the batteries was that I am, and Asad has been witness to the last 5 years of my life. I tend to stick with very few people in my life. I minimize my life's masla by just having 3-4 people around me. I don't have much social life. I just do one thing, family, work, that's it. I have changed in the last 3 years, which means I've learned stuff. So that means that if at my age of 43, I'm still a lifelong, I truly believe I'm a lifelong learner. And it's not just I'm learning skills, it's attitudes I'm also learning. It's also I'm learning citizenship. So I will retract that an 18-year-old cannot be taught that. Everybody can be taught that. What is needed is what we call in Urdu sohbat. Collectives of people working. So when you also mentioned university. What hit me there was my most amazing learning years was not A-levels, was those 4 years in college. That 4 years where I got to spend time with other people, I grew. So if you're saying, okay, I'll give you 18-year-olds, all you need to do is the same curriculum that we actually have worked on. So before coming on this, before doing this Alt Academy work that we've been only doing for the last 1 year, I have divided my time between doing 2 things. Creating a whole ecosystem of learning, not just a school. The whole master plan for that with a few smart people. At the same time working with just solving the immediate problem. So Alt Academy is not solving the long-term problem. It's solving the immediate problem of grades aa jayenge bachche ke. But what you're asking for is a long-term solution. The long-term solution is a curriculum jisme the foundations are based in citizenship, jisme honesty to self and society is at the core of it. And you can teach that to all, you can teach that. People are cynical, but I'll tell you this much. I have been teaching 15, 16-year-olds for the last 20 years. They'll come and go, but they're still 15, 16. And we've seen all kinds of students. The really mischiefs also. But in the end, they truly believe at the end, if you can peel at it, wo pure hote hain. They still have, what do you call that? They have this passion. They have an innocence about them. आप खुर्ज के निकाल सकते हो. तो basically it's like a rehab university you'd want to create. You want to create a place where they can spend. I thought you were going with the 4 years. That probably is the time they need to really gel together. Maybe it is 4 years. Maybe it's 3 years. But it has to be a good amount of time spent with people. It's like a boarding school, but not really. You don't board people there. But they have to come together. And they can actually create that. You can create curriculums based on job foundation की बात कर रहे थे ना. That foundation is not about introduction to English or marketing or creative thinking or writing. No, it'll be based on these principles that a lot of smart people have already figured out for the longest time. अब या तो वो टोनी वैगनर फ्रॉम हार्वर्ड बोलेगा, उसको बोलेगा 7 सर्वाइवल स्किल्स और 6 सर्वाइवल स्किल्स, जिसमें कम्युनिकेशन, अडेप्टेबिलिटी, कोलैबोरेशन, एजिलिटी, जिसमें आपको बाकी बोलेंगे 6 C's, जिसमें क्रिएटिविटी, क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग, कोलैबोरेशन, कम्युनिकेशन, ऑल ऑफ देन सिटीजनशिप. These are all, everybody says the same thing in different terms. They have to be taught. They had to be taught in grades 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. नहीं हुआ ना, अभी भी हो सकता है. You can spend the first 2 years of that 4 years of 18-year-old's life in that foundation, the foundation of how to be a human being. And this is by the way happening. This is a place that's been an inspiration of mine. It's called African Leadership Academy. It's a private university, school and college. They have multiple things. You should look into this.
Adding into this, their mandate is to essentially is to make ethical leaders of tomorrow. And the way they do that is by actually bringing in students in the first year, right, and putting them through that entire leadership boot camp, their own boot camp as well. And then the second year they do all of A levels. They're an A level school. They've redesigned the way they're taking it forward.
And they do this leadership by creating a course which is very based in African. They'll read
culture and
the culture and heritage of that place. So, for example, abhi Iqbal Day hua hai. We had a holiday. How many people can read Iqbal? How many people can understand Iqbal? So the idea is it has to start from that. So the 4-year education mein skills is one part. Hard skills, let's say 10% might need medicine and engineering. There's a 90% kids. You've done computer science. I've done computer science. I know 3 other educators who also done computer science. Computer science seems to be the very good general degree to have to be able to think. It's critical thinking, really nothing more. Or BBA, which half the Karachi does already. So if you can just do 2 years of BBA or computer science at the last 2 years, and the first 2 years, literally, this is how I designed the whole curriculum based on cultural heritage, citizenship, ethics, understanding the self, society, where your place in this place is, before quiz and in no exams. There is no exams. And then you move on to the skill level. The skills are problematic because हम क्या कर रहे हैं, हम भी कह रहे हैं skill सीख जाओ. वो जो skill अगले 6 साल में ख़त्म हो, उसकी कोई ज़रूरत नहीं होगी. But what makes you the human being inside, that is needed. जो तरबियत part है तालीम तरबियत में. If I was given this clean hand के यार, you have this to do. This is go ahead and do it. Why you might say I'm not doing it today? Because I can't sell it today. And I'm an entrepreneur. I know I got to figure out a way, and that is my goal.
Well,
and that's my goal. I quit all those schools. I quit Nixor, Cedar, all this. That's my project now. I will only. Alt Academy is just a means to the end. कि यार बच्चे का exam grade दिला दिया. So what? I want these grades and exams to be over with. I really don't want a world when my child who's now 9, in another 8 years, 7 years, she's studying for A levels again. And she's studying from my videos. So I don't want that world. It has to change before that. So I'm hoping that it's changed, but we will accelerate that change. And so for me, an ideal school, college, university, they all look the same. It's the same age. I mean, आप age बढ़ा दो, कम कर दो. जहाँ आपकी core, यार, it's like the health literacy, mental health, physical health literacy, financial, all of these things are taught. Attitudes are taught, how to approach work, how to do things which are tough. Because we say our kids should be entertained at school. Yes, I understand that. I want that light. But I also want them to feel that we've overcome something hard and we've gotten here. We don't even teach that anymore. Exams are not the only hard thing in the world to pass. There are things, doing 20 hours of community service work a week is like a badge of honor. करो जाके बाहर कचरा उठाओ. ये अमेरिका में तो बहुत होता है, यहाँ कहीं होता नहीं है. So what does that teach you? It's to teach you things that you don't want to do. So be it a school at 8th grade, be it a school at A levels, be it a university, this is all we all need as human beings. And people say this about Pakistan कि यार हमारे बच्चे स्कूल्स में बाहर हैं. मैं कहता हूँ, मैं मानता हूँ कराची में, सिंध में तो बहुत ज़्यादा ही बच्चे बाहर हैं. बट जो स्कूलों में हो रहा है, I'm like, अच्छा ही बाहर है, वहाँ क्या सीख रहा है? Honestly speaking, most schools में कुछ नहीं सीख रहा, सिवाय things जिसके एग्जाम होते हैं, जिसका कोई बेसिस ही नहीं है लाइफ में. And the world is making us more visible every year. Because I've been in this industry for 20 years, I've seen how different the world view was 20 years ago in the same industry. And I see how the outside world is looking for this to change now. And I'm hoping there has to be an inflection point. The only problem is this is one of the few industries where, just like financial, where there's a government का heavy hand आता है. जब तक governments कुछ नहीं करेंगी, we cannot. I mean, they should just decentralize everything and just remove all the restrictions, make it open. We need democracy here. We're not getting democracy here.
Makes sense. Guys, I'm gonna wrap this up to our long. Again, another apology is warranted because मैंने promise किया था अपने audience को कि मैं 1 घंटे पे मुकाना शुरू कर दूंगा और पिछली 4 में से 3 episodes 2 घंटे पे गई हैं. But again, conversations जब अच्छी होती हैं तो I can't resist. मैं एक सवाल पूछूंगा. Generally, I ask all of my guests if you'd be kind enough to answer that. Sure. You guys both are well traveled across the globe. You are doing this in Pakistan. कोई वजह होगी, कोई फोर्साइट होगी जिसकी बेसिस के ऊपर आप ये डिफाइन कर रहे होंगे या ये जद्दोजहद भी कर रहे होंगे, बिकॉज है तो जद्दोजहद ही एट द एंड ऑफ द डे. पैसा इज़ ऑलवेज वन थिंग. जब तक आपके पास एक सर्टन वो नहीं होता ना फ़लसफ़ा का, यार ये जो मैं कर रहा हूँ ये मेरी ज़िंदगी में मुझे किस चीज़ में खुशी देगा अंदर से, तब तक आप उसको उस पैशन से कर नहीं सकते और सक्सेस आती भी नहीं है. सो इफ़ आई वुड टू आस्क यू, नोइंग व्हाट यू नो नाउ, सीइंग व्हाट यू सीन थ्रू आउट योर लाइफ, हाउ डू यू सी पाकिस्तान 28 years from now in 2050? What would your answer be?
How do I see Pakistan? Actually, I've never. Funny thing is, Asad mentioned you asked a question, and I actually didn't know what the question was going to be. I should have. But I generally say this. I say this to everybody. Somebody says, hey, "What's your 5-year plan?" People ask me for a business. What's your 5-year plan? 8-year plan? To honest answer is, I have never looked that world that far down, because I have stopped, because there's no prediction now, especially now. 3 years, 4 years, yes. 2-3 years, yes. But 10-20 years, like, so if you ask me what Pakistan should look like versus what it looks like, because if I always predict on what Pakistan could look like 20 years from now, and if I had done that 20 years ago, I would be a very cynical man by now. And I'm always an optimist. So
that's what I'm saying. I'm not necessarily saying should, because should, a lot of people give me the answer in should. And the fact is should is more, it's more dreamy. It's not grounded in reality. And it's very fascinating because I've actually, I look at a lot of content in the developed world where they actually talk about, and this part of me asking for a Pakistan of 2050 really developed because growing up and recently as well, I would look at dreamers across the world giving you a vision of the future.
Okay.
हमारे जो ड्रीमर्स हैं ना, वो विजन क्या है, वो अपनी लाइक्स एंड डिसलाइक्स पे बेस्ड है, राइट. सो वो कहते हैं कि यार आई वुड लाइक फॉर पार्क्स इन माई नेबरहुड. ठीक है, अब यू आर सिटिंग इन कराची, मे बी दैट्स नॉट अ रियलिस्टिक, और यू आर सिटिंग इन दुबई फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एंड दैट्स नॉट अ रियलिस्टिक वो, बट इट्स लाइक श्योर यू कैन हैव इट. जब आप अमेरिका में देख रहे हैं और ख़ासकर थॉट लीडर्स को देख रहे हैं ना, तो हर बंदा किसी बेसिस के ऊपर कहीं ना कहीं कोई प्रोजेक्शन दे रहा होता है जिस पे वो ये कहता है कि यार नोइंग, देखें सिंपल सी बात है. लेट्स अज्यूम आई स्पीक टू अ टीचर हु इज जस्ट आउट ऑफ लम्स, हैज स्टार्टेड टीचिंग इन द लास्ट 6 months. वो जब मुझे बताएगा ना कि यार आज से 30 साल बाद पोटेंशियली एजुकेशन कहाँ खड़ी होगी, उसके आंसर में और आपके आंसर में जिन्होंने 20 साल एजुकेशन में गुजारे ना, फ़र्क होगा. आज आप मुझसे पूछेंगे कंटेंट इंडस्ट्री कहाँ खड़ी होगी, और एक नए बच्चे से पूछेंगे, नया बच्चा जो भी बताएगा ना, मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ बेस्ड ऑन माई 10 years of experience and the evolution that I have experienced. More often than not, I find it very, very surprising that most people in Pakistan are I'm not saying कि आप मुझसे पूछेंगे आपका 5-year plan क्या, मुझे नहीं पता, बट आप मुझसे पूछेंगे कि इंडस्ट्री किस तरफ जा रही है, ये किस तरफ जा रही है, वो इस वजह से I try to at least get people to think about it, is because a lot of times rather than throwing stuff in the dark, आपको कोई कॉन्टेक्स्ट अगर हो ना, तो यू कैन बिगिन टू बैक ट्रैक फ्रॉम दैट. कि आई थिंक बेस्ड ऑन द एजुकेशन सिस्टम, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल मैं छोटी सी मिसाल देता हूँ, वेयर डू आई सी पाकिस्तान इन 2050, अगर मैं एजुकेशन की पर्टिकुलरली बात करूँ.
So if the boundaries are education and really, right?
So wherever your thought leadership is, or beyond education भी हो सकता है, ज़ाहिर है जहाँ पे आपने एक्सपीरियंस किया हुआ है, जहाँ पर आप एक सेंस मेक कर सकते हैं कि
where would you like your daughter to be?
See, so as far as if I had to predict, I think we as a nation of lawmakers respond to external threats better than internal. We don't take hard decisions. We've never taken, unless we get a dictator who's here for 10 years, we've never really seen anybody take a hard decision. And I'm not a fan of dictatorships, but that's the only evidence I see of hard decisions being taken. So, but sometimes the hard decisions come from places like IMF or external bodies. So there will be a time where the hard decision will be taken given that what's happening in the world. What I predict is it'll be, we've heard of globalization when I was growing up, even the last 5-10 years ago, but I don't hear about it anymore because it seems like it's already here. I think it'll just be boundaryless. More and more it will be boundaryless. I think, and then because you already become, our generation has become that in their mind. Most of the boundaries exist only for passport. And I think there is less and less of the next generation to feel even patriotic about. Unless our cricket team keeps winning, there's not much that's grounding us. I tell people this, that is the only time that I see that different cultures in Pakistan actually truly be Pakistani is when we win a cricket match or we are in a cricket match, sadly. So either we really go strong in what our identity is, and maybe some politician had that, Imran Khan had that, he had that charisma and got many together, but he still has not everybody together, right? And there's also divisiveness now happening, and we see divisions, and that's the problem with this country. There's always divisions. So either we just then accept there are always divisions, and we create and we just open everything up. And that can also happen by an external entity. And because things are so rapidly changing, it can actually happen. Look at Ukraine. Who would have thought 2 years ago this is where we'll be sitting? So we do not know. I am not predicting that, but that is one way we can go. The other was that we actually had somebody take really hard decisions. And only then can we actually have change. So either Pakistan changes because the world is changing, or we take hard decisions. Because we haven't even taken a hard decision on crypto. Tell me something. The world is now accepting cryptocurrency. We are not even talking about it. And I've heard this from many of my friends who quote either the legal system or the financial system के in Pakistan पहले law बनता है कि कोई चीज़ नहीं करने का. In America is the opposite. If there's no law, you can do it. In Pakistan, you have to have a law to do it, unless you cannot do it. So there has to that change come in. And I'm not I've actually lived a very क्या कहते हैं, like Asad said earlier on, I've lived my life in my lane because I have chosen a lane so that because I had only had focus in this area. So there are a lot of external factors that have come to Pakistan and passed. We've seen in the last 20 years, I was hopeful for Musharraf, not Imran Khan, not Bilal Bhutto, not Benazir, yes, no, not. A lot of things have happened. And that part of the life is not very predictable now. I've seen that. Imran Khan has shown us we can't predict even politics. And that's great. A lot of things are coming out. But if you want change in Pakistan to take place, somebody's got to take the hard decisions. Either is the Chinese or the Gora giving us the money and saying open up your education system completely, or the companies saying we do not need a degree, which is why I kept going back to that. There has to be somebody taking a hard decision, and then only things will change. Otherwise, it's the rat race that we are fooling everybody else in, because there's no other goalpost. A parent has no other goalpost but grades for his kid. Somebody either has to demolish the current goalposts and make new ones, and that's when things change.
Makes sense. Asad, what do you think?
Very good answer, Bilal bhai. So I actually wasn't prepared for this because I didn't think I'd be in it, but
थोड़ा सा मैं अगर आपको बता दूं, असद के साथ मैंने ambush किया था. It was a 2-people podcast, but I just thought it'd be a nice discussion to have.
No, and much appreciated, yeah. I thought that when I would grow up one day, I would also be on Muzamil bhai's podcast. But you see, yeah, I think if I'm talking about my vision for 2050, if that's the question, right? My vision for 2050, I feel like it has to do what you said earlier कि जो गोरा कहता है कि भाई पूरे मुल्क का विजन, हम लोग कहते हैं कि हमारा विजन, my thoughts, my views, my this, my that, and unfortunately I'm going to stick in that lane, because I feel like being in this country from the age of 10, right, having spent 17 years over here, I've always been, and I've been a very self-aware kid. I'm still self-aware. I try to be in tune with, I have a very high EQ and a very low IQ. And I feel like what I've noticed, some things change in this country over these 17 years, is that it's harder and harder for us to coexist, not just as a collective, but then also in each individual strata. And I've just been lucky to be exposed to and be working with people that are twice my age, right? I gravitate towards people that are older. Bilal mentioned that I'm just an old soul. Maybe it's because I keep hanging out with him. I don't know. But it's also because, and I feel like one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is unlearn and relearn. And my vision for 2050 is that this generation, my generation, your generation, sorry Bilal bhai, we will have unlearned and relearned so many times. We would have learned from our leaders and from our seniors' mistakes and perspectives, is that we will figure out a way to make sure is that, number one, we can all coexist, but we can also humbly continue to excel. And humility, I feel like, is a very big factor, which I feel like is now starting to fall into place. शोदेबाजी जो थी, ये VIP कल्चर सब ने डाल दिया. टिकटॉक भी VIP कल्चर के खिलाफ चीज़ें आती है, right? Look, and you mentioned TikTok as well. Equalizer. of content, right? Game changer. We know more about the floods because of TikTok compared to our own news, right? We start seeing how literally because of the privileges we have of technology, of connectivity, of access, everything is now becoming more and more leveled. But then we will also end up putting boundaries to our leveling too. I feel there'll be a start and there'll be an end. Not to say that we're limiting ourselves, but we will know now we have to focus on depth within that.
Right.
And that's what I feel like. It's like we're going to become a nation which has a lot more depth, which has a lot more humility, but then also has a lot more tolerance and empathy towards one another. And that also we're going to realize. मैं economic answer अगर देता तो वो भी यही होता है कि भाई boom and bust cycle चल रहा होता है ना. आप लोगों ने देख लिया कि मुशर्रफ के टाइम पे इकोनॉमी क्या थी, जरदारी के टाइम पे क्या थी. We all see that. We have the stats, we have the charts for that. But there's a boom and bust cycle, and maybe I'm just a reluctant optimist right now, right? I just feel like if this is the low, I really hope this is the worst of it, then there's only up, right? I've lived my life reminding myself कि हर अरूज का ज़वाल होता है लेकिन हर ज़वाल का भी अरूज होता है.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Very, very.
But you said that na कि it can only go up from here. The sad part is I've also thought that multiple times in my life in Pakistan.
You couldn't have told me that lesson before we started doing this.
But I mean, उम्मीद पे दुनिया कायम है.
I do want to add one thing to what you mentioned about TikTok and what I heard Miftah Ismail speak a few days ago, I think at IB or something. कि यार हमारे सारे leaders ना 1-2 school से आ रहे हैं. And when you mentioned how democratizing TikTok has become, I think we are 1 or 2 or 3 moral or thought leaders away from rising as a nation. And I think not political leaders, thought leaders.
Thought leaders, yeah.
Moral leaders. And I really think if somebody can crack that part on TikTok, because right now we're not there yet. But I think when you are in the industry of content creation, when some honest to God thought leaders who know how to mold generations get that platform. And I'm not at the same time, I'll give an example of a person I sometimes follow online, Jordan Peterson. He's become that in his you might not like him, but he's become a thought leader and enough people listen to him. And I'm not saying we need him, but we need some people in our society. And I think I look more into TikTok because that's what I learned from this podcast, that I need to give that more attention. But I think that's where we'll find them.
Makes a lot of sense.
But I feel like sorry. But I feel like also with that, and to add on to that as well, is that whoever or however many of those thought leaders come about, it's also going to come abroad. Like, unfortunately, those thought leaders, if you're one of them listening, and if it's you also, you're just going to have to accept the reality कि भाई हर कोई आपके काम पे पानी फेंकने वाला है, right? You're going to have to eat the shit, right? You're going to have to hear all the hate and everything as well that comes with it. There is no easy way out. Jordan Peterson is a perfect example because even though he has hate comments in all of his videos, he keeps on going. He doesn't
give a shit,
right? And that's another thing.
And by the way, Imran Khan does that too. He's got enough hate also, but he keeps on going.
Yeah.
So we need that kind of attitude for other areas of our leadership also.
Just be sure about it.
Yeah.
Sorry guys.
मैंने endorse करा इमरान खान को, फिर आप आके मुझे यूथिया बोलते हैं. But nonetheless, guys, thank you so much for coming in. This was incredibly insightful personally for me as well.
This was fun.
And for us also, by the way.
And I hope that the audience, has some learnings there as well. Thank you for taking the time out, and I wish you the very best. I was very aggressive in trying to unbox you guys, but वो सिर्फ इस वजह से था, वो मैं कैमरे पे बंद होता था, बताता हूँ क्यों. But I know what you guys are doing is definitely remarkable, and I'm super excited. मैं आपको एक चीज़ honestly बोल देता हूँ.
Please.
4 और लोग आए हैं. Sincere apologies to them. If there's one edtech startup that I have truly gotten excited about, it's yours. That I genuinely think, and it's not just from what we've gathered here. Again, when we talk about Edcasa, when we talk about Nearpeer, 2 of the ones which again got me really excited. They were exciting because the founders had a great vision. When it comes to you guys, particularly on and off camera, I've noticed a few things where I think if agar main success ko measure karu, so I would say there is a very high confidence that I'm gonna see you be hopefully a $1 billion company.
That means a lot.
And so I'm very excited to see where you guys go. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for that,
thank
man.
you.
एंड फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू गाइस, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वाचिंग. अगर आपको एपिसोड पसंद आया तो अपने दोस्तों के साथ जरूर शेयर करिएगा. यूट्यूब वाले लाइक बटन दबाएंगे, यूट्यूब में ज़्यादा लोगों को हमारी कन्वर्सेशन पहुंचेगी. फेसबुक वाले नीचे दिए गए लिंक पर क्लिक करके TBT कम्युनिटी ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं, जहाँ पर हम डिफरेंट फीडबैक भी लेते हैं, गेस्ट रिकमेंडेशन भी लेते हैं, आर्टिकल भी शेयर करते हैं. यू कैन जॉइन दैट एज वेल. ऑडियो प्लेटफॉर्म्स वाले सब्सक्राइब कर दबाएंगे, आने वाले एपिसोड्स से आपको नोटिफिकेशन मिल जाएगी. यहाँ पर कहीं पर इजी पैसा जैस का सादा प्यार होगा. इफ यू लाइक सपोर्ट चैनल, वी एक्सेप्ट एनीथिंग फ्रॉम ₹1 to as much as you like. It's a thought that counts. इसी के साथ साथ अगर आप किसी चीज़ से एग्री या डिसएग्री करते हैं, let us know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on education? What are your thoughts on the future of education, the future of learning, the future of jobs? Would love to hear your thoughts as well. Season 4, we're doing something very, very exciting. If you'd like to support us and you're working in a brand or an agency, we are starting partnered segments. So if this is something that interests you, हमारा email address कहीं पर appear हो रहा है channel पे. You can check that out and reach out to us. I would love to have that conversation. But anyways, this was Muzamil Hasan. You were watching Thought Behind Things. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.